Chapter 380. Yu Fengqing glanced at his own champ squad, then looked at another member called Flying Dragon Squad and asked them a question. Yu Fengqing did not care about Yun Jian's team monarch at all. He did not even look at them when he was questioning them. Hence, when Yun Jian's melodious voice rang out, it came from behind Yu Fengqing. Yu Fengqing was stunned. He turned around and stared at Yun Jian like everyone else in Champ Squad and Flying Dragons. He raised his brows in disbelief. You know how to speak? Are you sure? His tone was filled with disbelief. If it were anyone else, Yu Fengqing and the rest might have believed her. However, Yun Jian was the youngest among them. Could she really learn Country A's language at such a young age? Country A didn't speak English. Yun Jian did not care about the disbelief in Yu Fengqing and the rest's eyes. She walked to the front desk of the hotel and knocked on the table with her fingertips. Then, she looked at the Country A lady at the front desk and spoke in a language that was almost the same as a Country A person's. Hello, beautiful lady. We have a total of 21 people. Please give us 7 rooms. Yun Jian and the rest had a total of 21 people. 7 rooms would be just right for 3 people each. Yun Jian, Chu Ning, and Jiang Weiwei were all girls. Hence, they could share a room. All right, beautiful lady. The Country A lady at the front desk gave Yun Jian a beautiful smile and issued the room tickets. The moment Yun Jian spoke to the Country A lady, Yu Fengqing and the rest were completely stunned. Even if Yu Fengqing and the rest did not know Country A's language, they could tell that Yun Jian's accent was the same as the Country A lady at the front desk. Moreover, the Country A lady at the front desk even replied to Yun Jian. Obviously, she understood what Yun Jian meant. Yun Jian could really speak Country A's language. Yu Fengqing and the rest were stunned, especially Yu Fengqing. He watched as Yun Jian walked back with the receipt for the room. Once he thought of how he looked down on Yun Jian, his face darkened as though he had fallen into a cesspool. You can check in now. Yun Jian waved the receipt and room key in her hand. Country A's hotel registration did not require complicated procedures. Moreover, Country A's security was not comprehensive. Hence, Yun Jian had already gotten the receipt and key after paying. The key was the hotel's key. However, due to the backward economy, it was different from China's. Due to Yun Jian's presence, everyone returned to their rooms swiftly. Once they were back in the hotel room, Chu Ning collapsed on the bed and chuckled at Yun Jian. Heh, Yun Jian, you're really something. Just how ugly was the expression of the leader of the champ squad just now? Humph, serves them right for looking down on us. Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan were used to having their emotions written all over their faces. Yun Jian only smiled faintly. Knock knock knock. Just then, there was a knock on the door. I'll go open the door. Jiang Weiwei had just put down her luggage when Chu Ning jumped up from the bed and ran to open the door barefooted. The door opened. The person standing outside was none other than the captain, Lu Shiyun. Pack up. We'll gather in the lobby on the first floor. The 3 of us will discuss the plan together. Lu Shiyun was here to inform them. Okay. Got it. Chu Ning gestured at Lu Shiyun. Yun Jian walked around the room. She did not take off her shoes. Hearing Lu Shiyun's words, she immediately followed him out. The lobby on the first floor was a place that this relatively high-end hotel provided for travelers to relax and chat. By the time Yun Jian, Chu Ning, and Jiang Weiwei went downstairs, Yu Fengqing and the rest were already standing in the lobby. Tisk, women are so troublesome. Xiao Weiming felt that the matter was not big enough, so he shouted loudly. Chapter 381. Xiao Weiming's provocative words had no effect on Yun Jian. At the same time, Chu Xiangnan, Chu Ning, and the rest automatically blocked Xiao Weiming's words and ignored him. Xiao Weiming was directly ignored. He snorted, and in the end, he did not make a sound. All right. Everyone, quiet down. Yu Fengqing acted as the leader of the 3 squads again. He slapped the coffee table in front of him and shouted. The moment Yu Fengqing spoke, everyone quieted down. All 3 squads are here for the same mission, so we have to work together. Moreover, the target of this mission is the internationally renowned thief. Yu Fengqing expressed his opinion. So you're saying that all 3 squads have to work together? Someone asked. Yu Fengqing continued to express his opinion, and what he said seemed to make sense. Yes, all 3 squads will work together to catch that thief and get the item back. So during this period, I hope that all 3 squads can work together without any disputes and work together to complete the mission. That was Yu Fengqing's opinion. What's more, Yu Fengqing's words were reasonable. Even he was impressed by himself. Lu Shiyun frowned and didn't say anything. I don't agree. Just as the group of people were almost done with their discussion, a clear female voice rang out again, interrupting everyone. Yu Fengqing's eyebrows twitched when he heard the voice. He turned to look for the source of the voice and saw Yun Jian standing in the same spot. She pursed her red lips and looked at everyone's gazes gradually falling on her. After a few seconds of silence, Yun Jian repeated, I don't agree. We have 3 squads with 21 people. If all 3 squads walk together, don't you think it's too conspicuous? It was like telling a thief who had stolen an antique that they were here to catch him. So I can't accept it. Yun Jian's words immediately attracted the rebuttal of everyone present. What we advocate is to work together. You're trying to be independent. Someone from the champ squad couldn't stand it anymore and shouted at Yun Jian. Perhaps it was because of Yun Jian's young age. Even though she spoke fluent Country Z's language, no one was convinced. That's right. Young lady, you're still too inexperienced. We've completed at least 100 missions. Which one of them wasn't done as a team? We're on a mission now. This isn't the time to let your tongue run wild. Yu Fengqing had just suffered a setback. He wanted to poke Yun Jian's spirit, so he refuted Yun Jian with the tone of an elder. Yun Jian only chuckled. Especially when you said that he had completed at least 100 missions, he had almost laughed out loud. But she didn't laugh in the end. She turned to look at Lu and the others. And asked, what about you guys? Do you want to work with them or with me? Yun Jian ignored Yu Fengqing, but her words were obvious. She was asking Lu Shiyun and the others if they wanted to complete the mission with her or follow Yu Fengqing's arrangement and complete the mission with Yu Fengqing and the others. Pfft, young lady, even a fool would know what to choose. You can either leave on your own or come with us. The person from Champ Squad who had spoken just now mocked Yun Jian again. Yu Fengqing also raised his head high. From what he could see, Lu Shiyun and the others would definitely follow them. After all, Yun Jian was just a teenager who had yet to reach adulthood. Even if she was good, where could she go? But the team that Yu Fengqing led was different. He had led his own team and completed countless missions. There was no way Lu Shiyun would take Team Monarch and leave with a brat like Yun Jian. Chapter 382. What? Yu Fengqing thought that since Lu Shiyun was the leader of Team Monarch, Lu Shiyun would definitely choose to go with him. He did not expect Lu Shiyun to choose to go with Yun Jian instead. I'll go with Yun Jian too. Chu Ning said without hesitation after Lu Shiyun. Me too. Me too. Then, other than Lu Shiyun, the other 5 voices followed without hesitation. However, everyone's choice was the same. This included Jiang Weiwei, who was not at odds with Yun Jian in the beginning. She had chosen Yun Jian's side with a determined voice. You? Yu Fengqing was so angry that his hands trembled. He swallowed hard and looked at Yun Jian and the rest. Finally, he said, fine, you guys. I'm sincerely inviting you to cooperate with us because you're new to the game. But since you don't appreciate it, so be it. Young people, you're still young and hot-headed after all. Humph, you're on your own. Yu Fengqing waved his hand and left in a huff. However, Yu Fengqing still believed that what he said was right. At the same time, he planned to wipe his eyes and watch Yun Jian and the rest fail because he chose not to work with them today. Yun Jian did not expect Lu Shiyun and the rest to believe her so much. She only smiled and looked at them without saying a word. However, everything was wrapped up in her words. Once Yu Fengqing left, the two teams split up. However, it was certain that Yu Fengqing had convinced Flying Dragon Squad. The current situation was that Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad had started working together. After rejecting Yu Fengqing's invitation, Yun Jian, Chu Ning, and Jiang Weiwei gathered in Lu Shiyun's room at night. The seven of them began to discuss the plan. Coincidentally, while they were discussing the plan, Yun Jian received a message from Gu Junjian. The message on the phone was very simple, but it was a very useful message because there was a clue written on it. The thief who stole the antique was last seen at Tiandi Canyon in Country A's F City. The Tiandi Canyon was a famous scenic spot in Country A. In the canyon, there were dozens of kilometers of land. Looking from afar, other than large rocks, there was not a single blade of grass. Moreover, the canyon was uneven, winding, and steep. F***ck, why would the thief go to such a place after stealing the antique? After reading the message, Chu Xiangnan could not help cursing under his breath. Probably because he has nothing better to do, haha. Chu Ning laughed. Tiandi Canyon, Yun stood up and looked at the group. It will take 2 hours. We'll leave tomorrow morning. We'll rest and rest. We'll sleep from now on, we'll wake up at 4 tomorrow morning. Yun stood up, looked at the group and spoke. 4 o'clock. Oh my god. Chu Xiangnan complained. We sleep. Yun Jian and the other two returned to their rooms. Yun Jian could sleep at any time and Jiang Weiwei could adjust her sleeping time. Chu Ning, on the other hand, rolled around for a while before falling asleep. The next morning, there was no light at all. It was so dark that one could not even see their own fingers. Chu Ning was dragged out of bed by Yun Jian. Other than Yun Jian, the rest were still sleepy. However, with Yun Jian leading the group, they quickly went to the nearest bus station and boarded the earliest bus to F City. It was already 6 o'clock when Yu Fengqing and the rest woke up. He thought about it and decided to look for Yun Jian. Yun Jian was the only one among them who could speak Country A's language. When Yu Fengqing knocked on Yun Jian and the rest's door, he was stunned to find that the room was empty. However, Yu Fengqing and the rest knew that Yun Jian and the rest must have gone to F City first. Chapter 383. When Yu Fengqing and the rest boarded the bus to Tiandi Canyon in F City, Yun Jian and the rest had already alighted. The Tiandi Canyon in F City was actually a scenic spot in Country A. Within the Tiandi Canyon, there was no dense vegetation within a 100-mile radius. Even if there was, it was scattered across a vast area. In short, it was basically impossible to see a dense forest in the Tiandi Canyon. Although the Tiandi Canyon was a scenic spot, there were not many people. Moreover, the scenic spot was free to enter and exit, so there was no need to buy a ticket to enter. Due to the vastness of the Tiandi Canyon, if a person were to walk in, they would not be able to walk out even after a few days. Therefore, Yun Jian and the rest negotiated and rented a jeep from a car rental agency. The rental car was not expensive as Gu Junjian had given them quite a bit of Country A's currency before the mission. Moreover, Yun Jian knew Country A's language, so they were able to rent a car very quickly. The jeep was quite big, so the 7 of them could barely squeeze into it. Fang Xiaoran was driving and his driving skills were not bad. Moreover, in such a vast Tiandi Canyon, there was no need to drive very fast if they were to drive aimlessly. Yun Jian, what should we do next? Even if that master thief is here, this place is so vast. If we keep searching aimlessly, it'll be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Lu Shiyun turned to ask Yun Jian out of habit. Although Lu Shiyun was the captain of Team Monarch, he had unknowingly treated Yun Jian as the core and would always ask for her opinion whenever something happened. The other members also unknowingly treated Yun Jian as the core, so Lu Shiyun as the captain and Hong Fan as the vice captain were just decorations. Head south, Yun Jian turned to look out of the window, pursing her red lips as she said, head south. Fang Xiaoran was still driving the jeep. When he heard Yunjian's words, he immediately turned the steering wheel and headed south. Yunjian, why are we heading south? Just as Lu Shiyun was about to speak, Chu Ning, who had nothing to do along the way, snatched the opportunity to speak. Chu Ning took the initiative to ask the question that was on everyone's mind. This heaven and earth Grand Canyon extended in all directions, and it was a rocky mountain range that stretched as far as the eye could see. When the car drove on the road, it was also undulating. Sometimes, it would even pass through two mountains. Fortunately, they had brought a compass, so they could distinguish north from south. However, everyone had a question: why did they head south? Even Gu Junjian and the others could not find out where the thief was in the Tiandi Canyon. They only knew that the thief was last seen here. How could Yunjian be so sure that the thief master had gone south? Although everyone was suspicious, even if they had taken the wrong path, they still had to follow Yunjian. Yunjian reached into the pocket of her newly bought long-down jacket and took out a map with a label and a very detailed introduction. She passed the map to Chu Ning, who was sitting beside her, and said to the rest, "I got this from the car rental place. It's a panoramic map of the Tiandi Canyon. Head south and there's a water source in the south. A water source means that there must be people living there. If we head in other directions, forget about a water source, we'll enter a desert area. Even if the thief wants to hide from us, can he avoid a water source? Can he not eat? Therefore, the south must be the path he must take." Chapter 384. After listening to Yunjian's analysis, everyone felt that they had gained a lot of knowledge. There were indeed many maps of the nearby scenic spots in the car rental store, but apart from Yunjian, no one else would bother to understand them. At the same time, no one would think of getting a map to look at. The map was actually universal. Although Lu Shiyun and the rest couldn't understand the words on it, they could still distinguish the coordinates on it. Moreover, most maps were in English. As for Yunjian, the moment she arrived at the car rental store, she took a map and understood the terrain. She also knew how to analyze the terrain and finally came to a conclusion. Actually, there were many things that no one could tell you the answer to, but you could find the answer from the environment. For example, that master thief. Unless he was courting death, he would go in the direction of human tracks. Without a doubt, the direction with human tracks was the south. Because it could be seen from the map that apart from the south, if one went in any other direction, they would end up in a boundless desert. Since we know the direction, Feng Xiaoran, speed up the car. Chu Xiangnan also happily stepped forward and interjected. No need. Yunjian immediately retorted Chu Xiangnan. She pursed her red lips and continued, "Drive slowly, don't be anxious. We don't have to alert the enemy. In the eyes of that master thief, we are just a group of tourists who came to the Tiandi Grand Canyon for a vacation." After saying that, Yunjian narrowed her eyes. However, everyone understood what she meant. She meant that before confirming who the master thief was, everyone should pretend that they were just a group of students who came to the Tiandi Grand Canyon for a vacation. Feng Xiaoran drove the jeep at a very slow speed. After driving for about an hour, Yunjian looked at the scenery outside the window and suddenly saw that it had changed. It was no longer a barren wasteland or a large piece of rock. Instead, there was a small upstream river, and on the other side of the river was a large village. Everyone was delighted. Feng Xiaoran didn't turn his head but asked Yunjian, "Yunjian, are we going into the village?" "Yes, let's find a place to rest and stay for the night." Yunjian nodded. Thus, the group entered the village. The men in Country A were used to wearing a headscarf on their heads, while the women used a headscarf that covered their entire head except for their facial features. This was the custom of Country A. Yunjian and the others got off the car, and Yunjian went to the village head to seek shelter. The village chief and the villagers expressed a strong welcome to the guests from afar. In the end, the village chief divided Yunjian and the others into 4 groups and arranged them to live in 4 different households in the village. Yunjian was arranged to live alone in a seemingly poor family. This family was very hospitable. The hostess was in her 40s and her name was Adia. Adia had a daughter who was 2 years younger than Yunjian. Her name was Boba. Adia's husband had already passed away, so Adia had to raise her child Boba alone. Life was very difficult for her. In spite of it, Adia expressed the strongest welcome to Yunjian, an outsider. In less than half a day, Adia's daughter, Boba, had already become familiar with Yunjian. In addition, there was no language barrier between Yunjian and the people in Country A, so Boba seemed to like her sister very much. Boba shook Yunjian's hand and looked at Yunjian expectantly. "Big sister, can you accompany me to the river to catch fish?" Yunjian also liked this little sister who was 2 years younger than her. She nodded and followed Boba to the river in the village. There were already many children of Boba's age standing by the river. All the children were catching fish in the most primitive way, holding a long, sharpened bamboo pole, standing in the shallow and clear river, looking at the fish swimming back and forth, and directly poking them with the bamboo pole. Boba had just taken Yunjian's hand to the river when they were surrounded by a group of careless boys. Chapter 385. Because she didn't have a father, she had been bullied by these naughty children since she was a child. Originally, Boba had been bullied to the point of numbness, but in front of Yunjian, the elder sister she had just met, she was surrounded and mocked. Boba's face immediately turned pale. "We're just here to slack off, don't be like this." Boba's face was pale. She was afraid that Yunjian would ignore her because she was bullied by these boys, so she looked at the group of boys around her with pleading eyes and said. Yunjian's eyes flashed. Boba had been bullied since she was a child. Because she didn't have a father, the naughty children around her had always made fun of her and even made up poems about her life experience. Boba was not as alone as she was now when she was a child. She used to have friends. But later, her friends were scared away by these boys and were no longer willing to play with her. When Yunjian moved into Boba's house, Boba was half surprised and half happy. Especially when Yunjian didn't refuse to make friends with her, Boba's heart was overflowing with joy. But now, the actions of these boys made Boba afraid. She was afraid that because of these boys, the elder sister she had just met would not be willing to make friends with her. Slack off? Huh, with just the two of you? At this time, a heavy sarcastic voice suddenly came. A 16 or 17-year-old boy with a dark complexion but a decent appearance pushed the crowd aside and stood in front of Boba and Yunjian. This 16 or 17-year-old youth seemed to be the king of this group of boys, because when this youth appeared, the other boys all cheered and made way for him. Jiliheng. Boba looked at the 16 or 17-year-old boy with some fear and couldn't help exclaiming. The boy called Jiliheng stretched out his hand, raised his head, hooked Yunjian with his finger, and then said arrogantly, "I heard that you're a foreigner and Boba's new friend?" Huh? How dare you be friends with Boba without my consent? Jiliheng's tone was very tough. That feeling of, "I am the master," made Yunjian narrow her eyes. Why not? Yunjian raised her eyebrows. She narrowed her eyes and replied in fluent Country Z, "Big sister, don't. Let's go. He's Jiliheng, the overlord of our village. No one can challenge his dignity. Let's go." Boba tugged at Yunjian's clothes and said with some fear. Yunjian lowered her eyes and retracted her gaze. She did not intend to be nosy. She was here to carry out a mission. That godly thief could be around at any time. If she let her guard down, or if she showed off her skills, wouldn't she be luring the snake out of its hole? Just as Yunjian and Boba turned around and took 2 steps, Jiliheng's voice came from behind again. "Hey, are you really leaving?" However, Yunjian ignored him. Jiliheng was anxious. It was rare for him to meet a girl who was not afraid of him mentally. Purely out of curiosity, he wanted to stop Yunjian. However, seeing that she did not move at all, Jiliheng shouted again, "Stop, stop, stop. Let's have a fishing competition. Let's see who can catch more fish in 10 minutes. If you win, I won't bully Boba anymore. How about it? And I promise that no one will bully her in the future." Really? Yunjian heard Jiliheng's words and instantly paused. She turned around and asked. Of course, I, Jilihang, am a man. I never go back on my words. Jilihang patted his belly and promised. Then let's begin. Yunjian's speed of change was unpredictable. Jilihang was also slightly stunned. However, when he thought that she was just a girl younger than him, he did not think much of it. Therefore, Jilihang immediately asked someone to bring 2 bamboo poles. He and Yunjian each took a bamboo pole. When Lu Shiyun and the others met at their respective residences and walked across the river to find Yunjian, they happened to see Yunjian holding a bamboo pole and preparing to compete with Jilihang in fishing. Chapter 386. Yunjian was not disturbed by the appearance of Lu Shiyun and Chu Xiangnan at all. At this time, she was already standing in the stream with Jilihang. Most streams in winter were bitterly cold, but strangely, the spring water of this stream did not make people feel cold at all. On the contrary, people standing in the stream would feel warm. It's starting, Jilihang said to Yunjian with a bamboo pole in his hand, glancing at her. Okay. Yunjian nodded. She narrowed her eyes and nodded to Jilihang with a bamboo pole that was sharp enough to stab a fish to death. Yunjian, come on. Chu Ning and the others could not understand the shouts of the group of country people, but Chu Ning waved at Yunjian and cheered for her. Yunjian kept her eyes squinted, staring at the bamboo pole in her hand. Big sister, come on. My boba also looked at Yunjian gratefully. At the same time, she also raised her voice and shouted for Yunjian in her Mandarin. Ha! Jilihang suddenly chuckled. A wicked smile that did not match his age climbed up the corners of his lips. Chi! Jilihang stabbed the bamboo pole in his hand into the stream and stabbed a small fish that was swimming freely. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and also stabbed the bamboo pole in her hand into the stream. It missed? Ha ha ha. It missed. Jilihang's group of friends chuckled at Yunjian. Yunjian's stab with the bamboo pole missed. Chu Ning and the others were also disappointed for a while. Yunjian was not in a hurry. She lowered her head and did not show any expression. Hee hee. Jilihang also laughed. He laughed even more presumptuously, and at the same time, he stabbed the bamboo pole in the stream several times in a row. Chi, 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 chi. 5 consecutive stabs. A fish appeared on the bamboo pole in Jilihang's hand. It could be said that Jilihang had never missed. He then looked at Yunjian. She had also stabbed him a few times, but she didn't even manage to hit him once. Jilihang's group of friends became even more excited. They began to shout arrogantly, Jilihang! 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 What's wrong with Yunjian? Chu Xiangnan also frowned. He was a little disappointed that Yunjian did not live up to his expectations. He looked as if he could not wait to replace Yunjian and win. Shut up. Jiang Weiwei, who had been silent all this while, suddenly kicked Chu Xiangnan and growled at Chu Xiangnan. The others were also frightened by Jiang Weiwei's serious appearance, but they all frowned, not knowing what she was talking about. Jiang Weiwei furrowed her brows. She silently looked at Yunjian, who seemed to be using all her strength to use the bamboo pole to prick the fish, but was unable to do so. She did it on purpose. But why? Not long after, the bamboo pole in Ji Jihung's hand was full of fish. Chi! Ji Jihung had already reached a new level of fishing. He was standing with his back facing Yunjian. Another fish was successfully harvested by him. Yunjian suddenly narrowed her eyes. She took out the butterfly knife from her pocket when Ji Jihung completely let down his guard. She had already moved behind Ji Jihung in a flash. She lifted her leg and kicked Ji Jihung's back, sending him flying to the shore. At the same time, as everyone watched this sudden change in horror, Yunjian had already arrived in front of Ji Jihung. The butterfly knife in her hand did not wait for Ji Jihung to react. She placed it on Ji Jihung's neck. Outsider, what are you doing? You can't win the fishing competition. What are you doing to Ji Jihung? The group of boys immediately shouted. Chu Xiangnan and the others were also confused. Yunjian, what are you doing? Even if you lose, just admit defeat. It's not like you can't afford to lose. Chu Xiangnan even opened his mouth and said. Yunjian ignored everyone. She maintained her original posture and narrowed her eyes. The butterfly knife in her hand was even closer to Ji Jiheng's neck. Do you think I can't recognize you just because you've disguised yourself? Our famous thief god, Mr. Peter. Yunjian looked at Ji Jiheng and said with a smile. Chapter 387. Yunjian spoke in Chinese, so other than Chu Xiangnan and the others who were completely shocked, the group of boys from a country, including my boba, could not understand. However, this did not include Jiliheng, who was lying on the ground, who was also the thief Peter. After being recognized, Peter stopped pretending. He was not angry, nor did he fly into a rage because Yunjian saw through him. Instead, he reached out to push away the butterfly knife in Yunjian's hand and stood up. Needless to say, after being recognized, Peter was really shocked for a while. When he disguised himself as Jiliheng, even Jiliheng's mother could not recognize him. How could he be recognized by this young girl who was not even 18 yet? Who are you? Since he stopped pretending, Peter reached out to pull off the human skin mask on his face. He looked at Yunjian and asked. Under the mask was a face that was completely different from Jiliheng's. The face under the mask looked to be in his 20s. His skin was very tender, and there was a trace of handsomeness between his eyebrows. His nose was tall and straight, and he looked a bit like a mixed-race person. Yunjian did not threaten him with the butterfly knife. She narrowed her eyes and smiled as she shouted at Peter, your ancestor. F***ck, don't tell me you're. Peter heard Yunjian's familiar words. He could not help but jump and shout while pointing at Yunjian. The only person who could stand in front of him and call him his ancestor was that terrifying woman. Peter looked at Yunjian in a daze. He gestured at Yunjian and asked in surprise, why do you look completely different? Take a guess. Yunjian crossed her arms. She did not look at Peter. Instead, she curved her red lips and smiled slightly. She did not recognize him at first, but in her eyes, Peter's disguise as Jiliheng was too flawed. First of all, she could see from Peter's face that there were creases on his face and around his ears. As for Peter's identity, first of all, he stole the antiques. Stealing antiques that were heavily guarded in Jia province was not a simple matter. At the very least, that was something only a world-class thief could do. Back then, Yunjian knew a world-class thief who was good at stealing, Peter. Another characteristic of Peter was that he loved to play. Just like just now, once Peter started playing the game of fishing, he couldn't stop. And Yunjian took advantage of Peter's loss of vigilance to make her move. While Pete and Yunjian were chatting happily and acknowledging each other, the boys around them were so frightened that they ran home crying for their mothers when they saw Pete, who suddenly tore off his human skin mask and changed his face. Lu Shiyun, Chu Xiangnan, and the others were completely dumbfounded. All of them had heard Yunjian calling Pete thief god just now. This meant that Peter, who had suddenly changed his face, was the thief they had been looking for. But looking at the situation, could it be that Yunjian knew him? Everyone was panic-stricken, but no one said anything. In fact, Yunjian and Peter did know each other. That was something that happened in Yunjian's previous life. This Peter was actually a world-famous thief. It was said that he had never failed to steal anything. But in fact, he had failed once. The reason was that the thing that Peter wanted to steal was also the target of Yunjian's mission. Later on, the two of them met, and Yunjian won directly by force. Before Yunjian took the thing and ran away, Peter shouted at her, "Who the hell are you? How dare you steal from me? Your ancestor." Yunjian replied with this sentence. In general, Peter's skills were not bad, but it was the first time he lost to a woman. So, he had a deep impression of Yunjian. However, Peter didn't know about Yunjian's other identities. He only knew that this woman, Yunjian, was really terrible. The thing that he had stolen was clearly in his hands, but in the end, it was snatched away by Yunjian. Chapter 388. Aya, my great-aunt, no wonder my eyelids have been twitching since this morning. Why did you come back to look for me? Oh my God. Don't tell me you want to take away the treasure that I worked so hard to steal again. Returning to reality, Peter clutched his chest exaggeratedly. He looked at Yunjian as if he was looking at the devil and shouted at her. Lu Shiyun and the others were even more surprised when they saw this. Judging from Yunjian and Peter's words and actions, they seemed to be very familiar with each other. However, Yunjian pursed her red lips and smiled slightly. Then, she reached out her hand. You guessed right. Hand it over obediently. Peter retracted his hand and made a face as if he was about to die. Then, he clutched his pocket tightly. Are you really going to take it away? There's no room for negotiation? No. Yunjian's deep eyes flashed. She opened her mouth and didn't allow for any rebuttal. All right then. Peter could only reach out his hand and rummage through his pocket. Then, he reluctantly took out an emerald jade pendant and handed it to Yunjian unwillingly. This emerald jade pendant was the one that was lost in the Zhe Province Museum. Before they came, Gu Junjian had shown Yunjian and the others a photo of the lost antique. It was this emerald jade pendant. Although it was just a jade pendant, this jade pendant was actually an ancient relic left behind by a famous scholar in the Tang dynasty. It had been quite a few years since then. Naturally, it was worth a lot. Just like that, the mission is completed? Chu Xiangnan and the others stood where they were. They watched as Peter obediently handed the jade pendant to Yunjian without any resistance. All of them turned pale with fright. After all, Peter was an internationally renowned thief, wasn't he? He actually handed the antique jade pendant to Yunjian just like that? This meant that the mission was successfully completed. Wasn't this mission supposed to be quite dangerous? Why did the thief obediently hand over the item as soon as Yunjian showed up? Who exactly was Yunjian? However, if Peter heard Chu Xiangnan and the others silently criticizing him for handing over the antique jade pendant to Yunjian, he would be in deep trouble. Peter would definitely put his hands on his hips and shout at Chu Xiangnan and the others. When he fought with Yunjian, both his arms were broken by Yunjian. If Peter hadn't dodged quickly, his entire body would have been broken by Yunjian. Peter swore that he would never meet such a terrifying woman again in his life. But this time, it was such a coincidence. All right, you can go now, Yunjian said with a grin, looking at Pete. Peter wanted to cry but had no tears. He quickly packed up his things and ran away. His speed was even faster than a car. After Peter left, he wasn't a bad person. It didn't take long for him to release the real Geely hunter. The real Geely Hang had tasted the feeling of being bullied by Peter. From then on, he repented and no longer bullied my Boba and her group of weaklings. Yunjian and the others stayed the night under the warm hospitality of the villagers. The next day, Fang Xiaoran drove the jeep and left. My Boba sent Yunjian and the others all the way to the entrance of the village until Yunjian and the others could no longer be seen. This encounter was like a fleeting moment in life. Once they parted, it would be forever. After leaving the village, they returned along the same path. As soon as they returned to the crowded flat ground, they met Yu Fengcheng and the others who were still searching around the canyon but to no avail. How dare you leave without saying a word? Do you know what kind of behavior this is? This is abandoning your companions and selfish behavior. What kind of future do you think you can have? You still want to rely on your own abilities to complete the mission. I think you're dreaming. Due to the language barrier, Yu Fengcheng and the others couldn't even rent a car. They had been walking since yesterday morning and were extremely tired. When he saw Yunjian and the others, Yu Fengcheng rushed up and scolded them like an elder. In reality, he was resentful that Yunjian knew Country A's language but didn't team up with them. Chapter 389. Pack up what team? Return to the country? Wait a minute, mission completed? Yu Fengxing was about to yell at Yun Jian, but after a few words, he caught what Yun Jian meant and held his tongue. In the next second, he was overwhelmed by shock. From Yu Fengxing's perspective, no matter how capable Yun Jian was, there was no way she could lead Team Monarch to complete the mission successfully. Yu Fengxing was not the only one who thought so. Everyone in the Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad shared the same thought. The difficulty of this mission was highly valued by their superiors. The importance Gu Junjian placed on this mission could be seen from the fact that he deployed the 3 best squads in the military to complete the mission together. There was no doubt that even if the Champ Squad and the Flying Dragon Squad joined forces, they still couldn't find the slightest trace of the godly thief who had stolen the antique. How long had it been? Yun Jian said that Team Monarch had completed the mission. Little girl, are you kidding? A rough-looking man from the Champ Squad asked Yun Jian arrogantly. The tone of this person's voice was filled with an air of complete disbelief. Ha! I think this bunch of newbies from Team Monarch have never learned anything except to brag. If the mission this time was so easy, why did Officer Gu send us 3 squads to complete it? To play monkeys? Xiao Weiming had a fight with Chu Xiangnan early in the morning, so he was now unhappy with the rest of Team Monarch. Yu Fengxing thought the same when he heard what his own squad members said. Young people, it's good that you have a heart that's eager for success, but everything has to be done according to the facts. The mission this time isn't so easy. I saw that you guys went into the Tiandi Canyon and didn't find anything. I've said it before, we have to work together and work together. Yu Fengxing's long-winded words came one after another. However, Yu Fengxing and the others' intentions were clear. As for Yun Jian's claim that Team Monarch had found the antique, they remained unconvinced. Hey, you guys. When Chu Xiangnan heard this, he was also anxious. He opened his mouth to say something, but was stopped by Yun Jian. Since you want to enter the Heaven and Earth Grand Canyon, then go ahead. We won't accompany you. Yun Jian only said this one sentence before she led everyone away. The attitude of Yu Fengxing and his group disgusted Yun Jian, so she didn't even intend to say anything more. She directly called for Lu Shiyun and the others to leave with her. Seeing Yun Jian and the rest leave, Yu Fengxing stomped his feet in anger. He even shouted at Yun Jian and the rest. Young and hot-blooded. Not knowing what's good for him. Since that's the case, we'll leave on our own. Yu Fengxing cursed in a low voice before leading his group into the Tiandi Grand Canyon. Yun Jian and her friends went back on their own and took the bus back. It was a long and bumpy ride before they finally made it back to Longmen City. After passing the jade pendant to Gu Junjian, it was announced that the mission was successfully completed once again. Gu Junjian was utterly shocked. He did not expect Yun Jian and the others to return so soon. When he kept the jade pendant, he looked at Yun Jian blankly and asked, "The mission is completed? What about the other 2 squads?" "They don't believe me, so they're still in Country A," Yun Jian said to Gu Junjian with narrowed eyes. After a beat, Gu Junjian pressed his lips together, unable to say anything in the end. At this moment, Gu Junjian was deeply aware of something. Whether it was Team Monarch's mission completion time last time or this time, it was telling Gu Junjian that Team Monarch had a bright future ahead of them. Yun Jian's future achievements were definitely not something a mere special forces team could hold back. Yu Fengxing and the rest, on the other hand, had searched for half a month in the Tiandi Grand Canyon and turned the entire Country A upside down, but they could not find any trace of Peter the Godly Thief. It was only when Gu Junjian sent someone to bring them back that he told them that Yun Jian had already brought the antique jade pendant back half a month ago. Yu Fengxing and the rest nearly vomited blood from anger. Chapter 390. Initially, she thought that Yun Jian and the rest would be away for at least 10 days to half a month, and they might not even be able to make it back for the new year. However, her daughter was home in less than 2 days. Naturally, Qin Yiru breathed a sigh of relief. After all, going on a mission was risky. It was just the start of winter break, and there was still some time before the new year. The next evening, Qin Yiru went to the mall to buy some New Year goods after work. Qin Yiru had some savings now. Ever since she started working at New Cruise, the family was never short of money. Therefore, Qin Yiru bought more when she went shopping for New Year's goods. Mom, I won't be having dinner at home today. You don't have to prepare a bowl and chopsticks for me. Yunjian told Qin Yiru. She stood in front of the door, put on a pair of white shoes and wrapped a scarf around her neck, and turned to pull the door open. Sure. Qin Yiru agreed. Yunjian pulled the door open, braving the bone-chilling wind outside and walked out. Today, she wore a long down jacket that was long enough to cover her knees. She tied her hair into a high ponytail and wrapped the rest of her body in a scarf. Her lower body was a little simple. She only wore a pair of long johns, which was quite warm. After completing the mission yesterday, to celebrate, Chu Xiangnan was the host. He invited all the members of Team Monarch and planned to treat them to dinner. After dinner, they even planned to go to karaoke. Their identity as special forces aside, Chu Xiangnan was actually a rich young master from a big family, and his family was extremely wealthy. Since he did not lack money since he was young, Chu Xiangnan was used to living a life of having everything taken care of. He was usually generous. In fact, Chu Xiangnan was the weakest in Team Monarch. As for why he was chosen, it was because Chu Xiangnan was forced into it by his father. He said that he wanted him to suffer in the army so that he could change his arrogance. Before entering the special forces, Chu Xiangnan was a typical rebellious teenager. He hung out with a bunch of bad friends all day long and often didn't return home at night. Therefore, in a fit of anger, Chu Xiangnan's father used his connections to get him into the special forces. He even told him that if he dared to go home without learning some skills, he would break his legs. It was Chu Xiangnan himself who told these things to everyone as if it was a joke. Yunjian braved the cold wind and walked out of the house. She turned a few corners and came to the entrance of an alley. At the entrance of the alley, Chu Xiangnan and the others were already stomping their feet as they waited for Yunjian. Seeing Yunjian walking over, Chu Xiangnan quickly waved and said, "Yunjian, you just came. Quick, quick, quick. Here, hurry up, I'm freezing." Yunjian followed Chu Xiangnan and the others. "I'll treat you guys to a feast today. Hee hee." Chu Xiangnan blew on the warm air and said to Yunjian and the others, "Don't give me that. What time is it? Hurry up, I'm starving." Chu Ning jumped up and slapped Chu Xiangnan's head. She ordered Chu Xiangnan in a domineering tone. Okay, let's go." Chu Xiangnan took the lead and led everyone to the location of the feast. Yunjian walked at the back. She pursed her lips, and her delicate little face was already red from the cold. The feast that Chu Xiangnan mentioned was a newly opened hotel. It didn't have a star rating, but the prices of the food inside were very expensive. This hotel was opened by a foreign country, and the owner was a foreigner. Chu Xiangnan brought Yunjian and the others into the hotel. The lights at the main entrance of the hotel flickered, and a huge chandelier hung above. There were guests at all the tables on the first floor, and it looked like all the tables had been booked. It looked like someone was holding a banquet. Therefore, Chu Xiangnan planned to lead Yunjian and the others directly to the second floor. Chapter 391. When Yunjian heard the familiar voice that she had not heard for a long time, she turned around abruptly and saw Mayor Gu's smiling, mature face. Yunjian nodded. Mayor Gu was pleasantly surprised to see Yunjian here. He glanced at Yunjian before an equally surprised voice rang out. "Uncle Gu?" This shout came from Chu Xiangnan. At this moment, Chu Xiangnan was looking at Mayor Gu in shock. He was already standing at the top of the stairs, looking at Mayor Gu with his head tilted sideways in surprise. Mayor Gu glanced at Yunjian before looking at Chu Xiangnan and the others behind Yunjian. He asked Yunjian, "Do you know each other?" "Yes." "Uncle Gu, what are you doing here today?" Chu Xiangnan nodded to indicate that he indeed knew Yunjian before he asked Mayor Gu a question. "I have a dinner appointment here, so I came over," Mayor Gu, replied Chu Xiangnan in a friendly manner. Mayor Gu and Chu Xiangnan knew each other because Chu Xiangnan's father was Mayor Gu's sworn brother. Xiangnan, I didn't expect you to know this little girl too. Huh, I don't want to boast, but it's your good fortune to be able to hang out with this little girl. Mayor Gu praised him deeply the moment he opened his mouth. When they heard Mayor Gu praising this little girl, the group of people who were busy flattering Mayor Gu turned to look at them. You flatter me. Yun Jian was not shy in front of everyone. She merely narrowed her eyes slightly before she replied. Little girl, I think you're here for dinner too, right? We still have an empty table here. If you don't mind, why don't you join us? Mayor Gu looked at Yun Jian and the others and invited them over. Sure. Come, let's join us. Before Yun Jian and the others could say anything, Chu Xiangnan hurriedly pushed them over. Hence, the group of people gathered around a table of food and wine on the first floor and sat down one by one. It was actually a big boss who was treating Mayor Gu to this meal. Since the big boss had a favor to ask of him, Mayor Gu did not hold himself back and invited Yun Jian and the rest of them on his own accord. There were over 20 tables of food on the first floor. The big boss had invited them to dinner today because his daughter had given birth to a 1-year-old son. Using this as an excuse, the big boss invited all his relatives to dinner. At the same time, he did not forget to use this opportunity to build connections and invite Mayor Gu as well. As all the people present were relatives of the big boss, some of the big boss relatives were unhappy with the sudden addition of Yun Jian and the others at the same table. After Mayor Gu invited Yun Jian and the others to the dinner, he was busy dealing with the toasts from the various people. Yun Jian and the others sat around a table. The table next to them was filled with young boys and girls of the same age as Yun Jian and the others. It was probably arranged by the adults on purpose for the children to sit around a table by themselves. Ever since Yun Jian and the others sat down, the young boys and girls beside them kept sizing up Yun Jian and the others and whispering to each other from time to time. Finally, a boy of about 17 or 18 years old at the next table stood up and walked over to Yun Jian. Hey, how old are you? The boy walked over to Yun Jian and spoke to her in an arrogant tone. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and ignored him. It was obvious that this boy was here to cause trouble. More importantly, she saw a familiar figure among the group of boys and girls at the table. It was a very familiar figure. Because she had met her for the first time after her rebirth, Yun Jian still could not forget her. That person was Lin Mengyu. She was also the culprit who killed the original owner of this body. When Yun Jian walked over just now, she had already felt a burning gaze staring at her. She pretended not to see it. However, she had already noticed that the burning gaze that was sizing her up was avoiding her, not wanting her to notice her. Chapter 392. The one hiding behind the group of teenagers was indeed Lin Mengyu, who had caused the death of the original owner of the body. The big boss who was treating them was actually Lin Mengyu's relative. Ever since Lin Mengyu was severely injured by Yun Jian, she had asked her father to fire Yun Jian but was slapped by her father instead because Yun Jian had said something that made no sense. She then picked up a pen to stab Yun Jian in a fit of madness, only to be kicked away and relapse from her injury. Even her boyfriend, whom she had been longing for, Yuan Ingjun, had broken up with her because of Yun Jian. Lin Mengyu was utterly terrified of Yun Jian. Later, Lin Mengyu was hospitalized again due to relapse from her injury. By the time she came back with the intention of taking revenge on Yun Jian had already transferred to Longmen City. Today was Lin Mengyu's relative's wedding and the banquet was held in Longmen City's best hotel, so Lin Mengyu insisted on tagging along. Not long after she sat down, however, she saw Yun Jian and her friends coming in as well. Panicking, she hid quickly, thinking that Yun Jian and the others would go up immediately. She did not expect to be stopped by Mayor Gu and arranged to sit beside her table. Lin Mengyu suddenly remembered that her companions sitting around her were all capable people. She had wanted to seek revenge from her relative, but Yun Jian happened to come knocking on her door. Was Yun Jian not courting death? Hence, Lin Mengyu quietly called for the boy just now and told him to strike up a conversation with Yun Jian. It would be best if he could seduce Yunjian and ask her out. Then, she could get someone to beat her up. Lin Mengyu hid behind her friend and was thankful that Yunjian did not notice her. Little did she know that Yunjian had already noticed her. The boy who stood in front of Yunjian and wanted to strike up a conversation with Yunjian was called Zhou Yuhao. Zhou Yuhao walked closer to Yunjian and realized that she was very beautiful, so he couldn't help but gasp. He had come over to strike up a conversation with Yunjian purely because of Lin Mengyu's request. Now that he had a clear view of Yunjian's face, however, he had other thoughts. However, Yunjian ignored him. Zhou Yuhao pursed his lips and moved closer to Yunjian. However, he was stopped by Chu Xiangnan. However, Zhou Yuhao was not annoyed. He looked at Yunjian with a smile and continued to strike up a conversation. Beauty, I don't mean any harm. I just want to take you out for a walk after dinner. It was obvious that Zhou Yuhao did not have good intentions when he tried to strike up a conversation with her. No. We're going to sing karaoke later. Chu Xiangnan stopped Zhou Yuhao from getting close to Yunjian. He even helped Yunjian to wave Zhou Yuhao away. F***ck, who are you to her? Why do you care so much? Zhou Yuhao was stopped by Chu Xiangnan. He suddenly felt that he had lost face. Especially in front of so many people, he felt that he had lost face. Why do you care so much about me? Chu Xiangnan was also a rebellious young man. Although he had restrained himself after staying in the military training camp for so long, Chu Xiangnan stopped someone like Zhou Yuhao out of kindness for Yunjian. Who are you to her? Why do you care so much? Do you know who I am? I'm already a black belt in Taekwondo. Do you want to fight with me? Zhou Yuhao pointed at Chu Xiangnan's nose and shouted loudly. This shout attracted the attention of the people around them. However, Zhou Yuhao was proud of himself for saying this. He even felt Yunjian's attention on him. He raised his head even more proudly. It was as if he was saying, I know Taekwondo and I'm good at fighting. Huh? Chu Xiangnan also slammed the table and stood up. He was about to fight with Zhou Yuhao when Yunjian suddenly pulled him from behind. Yunjian, you? Chu Xiangnan, including Chu Ning and the others, looked at Yunjian in surprise. They did not understand what she meant. However, Yunjian pulled Chu Xiangnan and said to Zhou Yuhao, okay, let's go for a walk after dinner. Zhou Yuhao heard this and laughed. He glared at Chu Xiangnan provocatively. Chapter 393. No way. Yunjian, are you really going to go out with him later? What about the karaoke we agreed on? Chu Xiangnan saw that Yunjian had really agreed to Zhou Yuhao's request, and he was momentarily stunned. Then he pursed his lips and asked Yunjian. Of course it's true. I don't know how to sing anyway, so I won't go to karaoke. Yunjian smiled. She narrowed her eyes, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Zhou Yuhao, who was sitting opposite her, couldn't help but be stunned by her beauty once again. At this moment, Yunjian was quiet and beautiful. She looked like a natural beauty. Her slightly narrowed eyes gave people an indescribable feeling. Chu Xiangnan wanted to say more, but he suddenly paused. He suddenly remembered that when Yunjian had dealt with Peter, she had also narrowed her eyes and curled her lips like this. Could it be that Yunjian was? Chu Xiangnan suddenly thought of this, so he didn't say anything else. Everyone saw that Chu Xiangnan didn't say anything, so they pretended not to know anything. Lin Mengyu had been hiding behind her friends, and she was just out of Yunjian's line of sight. When she heard that Yunjian had agreed to Zhou Yuhao's request, her smile widened. After dinner, Mayor Gu walked over to bid farewell to Yunjian. He laughed and asked Yunjian to come back to his house as a guest next time. He even patted Chu Xiangnan's shoulder and asked him to bring Yunjian to his house as a guest. After Mayor Gu left, Zhou Yuhao immediately walked over to Yunjian and said, "Pretty girl, you just promised to walk around with me. Let's go now." As he spoke, Zhou Yuhao even glared at Chu Xiangnan, as if showing off his charm. Tisk, Chu Xiangnan cursed Zhou Yuhao in his heart, but he was secretly cursing him in his heart, waiting to see Zhou Yuhao cry. Let's go. Yun Jian's hands were in the pockets of her long down jacket. She pursed her lips, narrowed her eyes, and curved her lips slightly. Hee, let's go, let's go. Zhou Yuhao gave Chu Xiangnan another provocative look before he followed Yun Jian's path. Watching Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao leave from afar, Chu Xiangnan, Chu Ning, and the others even saw Zhou Yuhao reach out to grab Yun Jian's hand, but Yun Jian evaded him, not even letting him touch the corner of her clothes. F***ck, what's wrong with Yun Jian? Chu Xiangnan watched Yun Jian leave and couldn't help but complain. Chu Ning suddenly placed her index finger on her lips. She wanted Chu Xiangnan to keep quiet. What's wrong? Chu Xiangnan was stunned. He didn't know what was going on. At this moment, another group of people suddenly came out of the hotel. This group of people was the group of young men and women of the same age who were sitting at the table beside them just now. After this group of people came out, they carefully chased after Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao. When this group of young men and women disappeared in front of them, Chu Xiangnan smacked his head and said hatefully, F***ck, so they had a plan. So many people bullying one person, let's go. Let's go help Yun Jian kill them. Chu Xiangnan had an inexhaustible energy and was especially loyal. When he saw so many people walking towards Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao, he knew that the situation wasn't good, so he quickly ran over with Chu Ning and the others. On Yun Jian's side, Zhou Yuhao was walking side by side with her. Yun Jian kept a distance of 2 meters from Zhou Yuhao. Let's go through this alley to the opposite street and walk around, shall we? Zhou Yuhao brought Yun Jian to the designated deserted place. You decide. Yun Jian lowered her eyes. Her long eyelashes fluttered. Let's go. Zhou Yuhao watched as Yun Jian took the lead and walked into the deserted alley. He smiled slyly and quickly followed. When Lin Mengyu and the others reached the entrance of the alley, Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao had already disappeared from everyone's sight. Hurry up and follow them, don't let them get away. Lin Mengyu whispered and led the group of people inside. However, even when they were about to pass through the alley and reach the opposite street, they still didn't see Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao. What's wrong with Zhou Yuhao? Where is he? Where did he take her? Lin Mengyu shouted in exasperation. Lin Mengyu thought that with Zhou Yuhao's Taekwondo black belt, he could easily take care of Yun Jian. Are you looking for me? A soft female voice came from behind them. Lin Mengyu and the others turned around in fear and saw Yun Jian dusting her hands as if she was dusting them off. Then, Yun Jian was already standing behind them silently. Behind Yun Jian was Zhou Yuhao, who was tied up with hemp rope and had a rag stuffed in his mouth. Chapter 394. Zhou Yuhao. Lin Mengyu's hands trembled as she pointed at Zhou Yuhao, who was tied up, and screamed. Zhou Yuhao was tied up by Yun Jian. Zhou Yuhao was a black belt in Taekwondo. Other things aside, Zhou Yuhao's Taekwondo was at a whole new level. At the same time, he was also the strongest among Lin Mengyu's relatives. Zhou Yuhao's bones were strong since he was young. In addition, his family originally ran a martial arts school. Zhou Yuhao had been learning Taekwondo, Sanda, Judo, and so on from his father since he was young. He could be said to be invincible since he was young. Therefore, Zhou Yuhao's skills were naturally at a level where there was nothing to complain about. Especially among his peers, Zhou Yuhao had not met many opponents since he was young. Therefore, he was called the Taekwondo genius of the younger generation. Lin Mengyu obviously knew that Yun Jian had some skills. She had almost crippled herself with one kick. Therefore, Lin Mengyu let Zhou Yuhao deal with Yun Jian. It was all because of Zhou Yuhao's skills that he could suppress Yun Jian. After all, he was a black belt in the highest level of Taekwondo. However, she did not expect that just as Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao stepped into the alley, they immediately followed behind. In such a short period of time, Zhou Yuhao was tied up by Yun Jian silently. There was not even the slightest sound of struggle. Therefore, Lin Mengyu and the others were shocked and panicked. Especially Lin Mengyu. She had seen Yunjian's methods. Because of Yunjian, she was bedridden for God knows how many days. Several of her ribs in her abdomen were broken. Ah! Lin Mengyu saw Yunjian looking at her from the corner of her eyes. She saw Yunjian's narrowed eyes. Her deep eyes seemed to carry a sharp blade. Lin Mengyu screamed on the spot. Fear and panic instantly covered her mind. Run! Run! Lin Mengyu's intuition told her that she had to run. She had to run away from Yunjian. Therefore, Lin Mengyu suddenly turned around. She even wanted to abandon the group of friends behind her and run away first. You want to run? Do you think you can still escape? Yunjian suddenly broke into a smile. Her evil smile was faintly revealed, but when everyone saw it, they couldn't help but panic. Lin Mengyu ran for a while. Yunjian crossed her arms in front of her chest. She didn't chase after her. Lin Mengyu hadn't even taken 5 steps before she was surrounded by Chu Xiangnan and the other 5 who had caught up from behind in groups of 3. At this moment, Jiang Weiwei stopped Lin Mengyu. Jiang Weiwei held a dagger in her hand and pointed it at Lin Mengyu, forcing Lin Mengyu to retreat. Hee. Yunjian crossed her arms as she looked at the pale faces of Lin Mengyu and the others. She lifted her leg and moved closer to Lin Mengyu. Yunjian was not surprised by the arrival of Jiang Weiwei and the others. This was because when they were having dinner at the hotel, she had secretly sent a message to Chu Ning who was sitting on the other side of her. She had asked Chu Ning to lead the group and wait for Lin Mengyu and the others to follow her and Zhou Yuhao to surround them from both sides of the alley. You, what are you trying to do? Sob. At this moment, Lin Mengyu was forced to take a few steps back by Yunjian's aura. However, she realized that her back was facing the sharp blade in Jiang Weiwei's hand. She was so frightened that she screamed and started to cry without caring about her image. Yunjian was unmoved. She only tilted her head slightly and looked at Lin Mengyu and the others. The corners of her beautiful mouth were slightly raised. Chapter 395. You want to kill me? Lin Mengyu was dumbfounded when she heard that. Her whole body began to tremble. Yunjian wanted to kill her. Yunjian wanted to kill her? No. You can't kill me. What you're doing is against the law. It's against the law. Lin Mengyu shrieked. Her voice was very sharp, and her screams sounded like the squeals of a pig being slaughtered. Your voice is very loud. Unfortunately, this is the alley you found. There's no one around. Even if you scream yourself hoarse, no one will hear you, Yunjian said with a chuckle as she flipped her hand and pulled out the butterfly knife that she had been carrying with her. Then, while Lin Mengyu and the others were panicking, Yunjian took a step forward. She threw the butterfly knife away and placed the blade on Lin Menyu's neck. I wonder how beautiful it would be to cut open a throat that can make such a loud scream. Yunjian slid the blade of the butterfly knife left and right on Lin Menyu's neck, but she didn't let the blade go deep into Lin Menyu's throat. Ah! Lin Menyu's scream became softer and softer. She felt the coldness of the blade of the butterfly knife in Yunjian's hand. She instantly felt as if she was wandering around in a hopeless situation. Yunjian's seemingly lifeless eyes that were akin to the king of hell seemed to be sketching something. At this moment, Yunjian gave off the feeling that she was a fearless grim reaper. She didn't seem to be afraid of anything. She only existed to kill her. Lin Mengyu was walking on the edge of despair. It was her first time facing Yunjian like this. Right now, Yunjian was truly like the grim reaper who lured souls away from the underworld. I was wrong. Yunjian, let me go. Let me go. I beg you, sob. Lin Mengyu reached out and grabbed Yunjian's wrist that was holding the butterfly knife. She was so scared that she slowly knelt down in front of Yunjian. Let you go? Yunjian raised her eyebrows. Her low voice sounded even more terrifying. Yes, let me go, I beg you, I'm sorry, I promise you. I shouldn't have treated you like that in the past. Yun Jian, please don't kill me on account that I didn't really do anything to you in the past. No. At this moment, Lin Mengyu had a premonition that if she persisted, Yun Jian's butterfly knife would really slice her neck. You didn't do anything to me back then? When Yun Jian heard this, she really wanted to laugh. The original owner had begged Lin Mengyu in the same way, begging her not to hit her, begging her not to bully her anymore. The original owner even swore to Lin Mengyu that she would not have anything to do with Lin Mengyu's boyfriend, Yuan Ingjun. But what about Lin Mengyu? She directly kicked the original owner unconscious, then punched and kicked her. In a moment of carelessness, he even kicked a vital point. In his despair, the original owner lost his will to live and died. No. Besides, I've already apologized to him. Yun Jian, I was wrong. Lin Mengyu's voice was almost hoarse from shouting. She was now extremely regretful and scared. The butterfly knife was still stuck to her throat, motionless. Listen, the previous Yun Jian is already dead. The Yun Jian standing in front of you now can take your life at any time. Yun Jian looked at Lin Mengyu's terrified expression and immediately laughed. Chu Xiangnan and the others took advantage of the time when Yun Jian was dealing with Lin Mengyu to beat up Lin Mengyu's other helpers. Without formal training, it was impossible to achieve that kind of agility and nimbleness. When Chu Xiangnan thought of Zhou Yuhao who was showing off in front of him, he walked over with an evil smile and tore off the rag covering Zhou Yuhao's mouth. Little guy, do you have anything to say before you die? Chu Xiangnan looked at Zhou Yuhao with a smile. Who are you guys? Zhou Yuhao lost his voice and shouted. Why are Yun Jian and the others so agile? They are like people from the military. Why? They are around the same age as me. Hey, let me tell you, we are special forces. Chu Xiangnan fiercely slapped Zhou Yuhao's head and said arrogantly. Then, Chu Xiangnan pointed at Yun Jian and continued to say to Zhou Yuhao, unfortunately, you provoked the most powerful one among us. Hee, she can kill 100 of you with one hand. Chapter 396. They were special forces. More importantly, Yun Jian was the strongest among them. Zhou Yuhao stared at Yun Jian and the others in a daze, fear and trepidation engulfing him. Special forces? Who were those people? They were people protected by the country. He couldn't move at all. And Yun Jian and the girls were so young. No matter how hard Zhou Yuhao thought, he couldn't imagine that they were special forces at such a young age. No, you're lying. Yun Jian, how could you be special forces? When you were in Xinjiang town, you were just a student. How could you be special forces? Lin Mengyu wasn't even afraid of the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand when she heard that. She looked at Yun Jian in shock and cried out again. When Yuan Ingjun and Lin Mengyu were dating, Yuan Ingjun fell in love with the previous host and kept pestering her. This caused Lin Mengyu to think that the previous host had seduced her boyfriend and beat her up. Of course, before this, Lin Mengyu had investigated the previous host's background. The previous host's background was simple. Even if she was beaten to death, she didn't have anyone backing her up. Her mother was just a worker in a textile factory and her father was a gambler. After knowing this, Lin Mengyu gathered the two girls and brought the previous host to the toilet to beat her up. Now that she was suddenly told that Yun Jian was a special forces member and the strongest one among them, how could Lin Mengyu believe it? No matter how much a person changed, it couldn't be that big, right? How is it not possible? K, shut up you bitch. Yun Jian, just give her a knife and see if she believes it or not. Chu Xiangnan slapped Zhou Yuhao's face harshly again. He turned to roar at Lin Mengyu, looking exactly like a ruffian. No. I believe. Lin Mengyu trembled when she heard that and quickly shouted. Whether you believe or not has nothing to do with me. All I want is your life. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. She twirled the butterfly knife in her hand before stabbing it into Lin Mengyu's head. No. Ah. Lin Mengyu saw the butterfly knife in Yunjian's hand coming down on her head. She screamed and closed her eyes, all the cells in her body screaming in fear. Not only Lin Mengyu, but even Zhou Yuhao and the others had all closed their eyes. Lin Mengyu's other relatives were all squatting on the ground in fear. Their roars and begging for mercy resounded through the sky. Swish! Just as everyone watched in horror as the butterfly knife in Yunjian's hand plunged toward Lin Menyu's head, a loud shriek rang out. Yunjian suddenly narrowed her eyes. Her fierce pupils contracted and then narrowed again. Even her pupils were emitting an unusual color. At the same time, Yunjian suddenly retracted the butterfly knife in her hand. Just when Lin Mengyu thought that the knife was about to land in front of her, Yunjian tossed it away abruptly, tossing it toward a visible pile of trash at the corner of the alley. Ping! Just as the butterfly knife was about to pierce through the pile of trash and fly to the back of the pile of trash, a pair of hands suddenly appeared. Everyone was dazzled. They saw a 16 or 17-year-old girl in black clothes suddenly stand up from behind the pile of trash. The girl in black clothes faced the butterfly knife. She dodged to the left and right and then did a somersault in the air. Other than Yunjian, no one at the scene expected someone to be hiding there. They were all shocked. After the girl in black clothes stood up straight, she looked at Yunjian. Her expression suddenly became surprised. She went forward and greeted Yunjian respectfully. Lan Su greets the sorcerer goddess. The black-clothed girl's shout shocked everyone. Chapter 397. The black-clothed girl who called herself Lan Su made Yunjian and the others frown. Lin Mengyu had escaped death. Her face paled, and her eyelids rolled back. She fainted. As for Zhou Yuhao and the others, they looked at Lan Su in shock and fear. As for Chu Xiangnan and the rest, they too had turned their gazes towards the girl in the black dress. What did she call Yunjian? Sorcerer goddess? What was that? Lan Su, who had suddenly appeared, was dressed in black. Her plain clothes accentuated her tall and slender figure. She was a classic beauty with thin eyebrows, long eyelashes, big eyes, and fair skin. However, what was surprising wasn't Lan Su's appearance, but the fact that she was dressed in black. It was an ancient style, but the clothes she wore were different. The fabric on Lan Su's body was of the highest quality. Furthermore, her ancient black dress exposed her ankles. Chu Xiangnan looked at Lan Su in shock. At the same time, Yunjian narrowed her eyes. The moment she saw Lan Su, an image popped into her head. However, when she thought about it carefully, she realized that she had never seen Lan Su before. Yet, for some reason, she felt that this young girl who called herself Lan Su seemed to have met her before. Sorcerer goddess, don't you remember Lan Su? Seeing that Yunjian didn't say anything, Lan Su took 2 steps towards Yunjian. Her surprised expression was gradually replaced by disappointment. From the moment Lan Su appeared, she didn't even look at Chu Xiangnan and the others or Lin Mengyu, who was lying on the ground. Her pair of bright, beautiful eyes were fixed on Yunjian. It was as if she was waiting for Yunjian's answer. You. Yunjian placed her hand on her forehead. She looked at Lan Su in front of her and paused. Then, she looked at her and shook her head. Should I know you? Yunjian narrowed her eyes. She pursed her red lips and stared at Lan Su with her deep, playful eyes. Suddenly, she became vigilant. It wasn't that Yunjian thought too much. Just now, Lan Su had been hiding behind a pile of trash. She discovered her in time and threw the butterfly knife at her. Lan Su had called her sorcerer goddess in a flash. Yunjian had encountered this kind of familiar situation in her previous life. There were even assassins who used this method to attract her attention in order to hide their identity and assassinate her. It was Yunjian's first time meeting this girl who called herself Lan Su. Even if she felt a sense of familiarity, she would not let her guard down. Yunjian, when did you know such a beautiful girl? Why didn't you introduce her to me earlier? Hee hee. When Chu Xiangnan saw Lan Su, he was shocked by Lan Su's black clothes, her beautiful figure, and her beautiful face. He walked over and patted Yun Jian's shoulder. Chu Xiangnan used to be a typical hedonist, although he had restrained himself a little now. However, it was hard to change one's nature. Lan Su's appearance was completely different from Yun Jian's pure, clean, and exquisite face. Lan Su was tall and beautiful, while Yun Jian gave people a kind of pure and exquisite beauty. Yun Jian's beauty made people unable to take their eyes off her. Chu Xiangnan, are you stupid? Yun Jian already said that she doesn't know her. Chu Ning slapped Chu Xiangnan's shoulder hard. She pouted and shouted unhappily when she saw Chu Xiangnan paying so much attention to other girls. Lan Su didn't even look at Chu Xiangnan. She kept her eyes on Yun Jian. Finally, she was silent for a moment and took out something from her arms. She said to Yun Jian, "Sorcerer goddess, you don't remember me, but it's impossible that you don't recognize this. In this world, only you and the Lord Immortal can send it back." Yun Jian looked at the thing in Lan Su's hand and her eyes narrowed. The sandalwood box. Wasn't the sandalwood box already in Yulong mainland? Chapter 398. If Lan Su didn't have the sandalwood box, then Yun Jian would be more or less cautious. After all, the girl in front of her had an unknown background, and Yun Jian couldn't be sure that she wasn't an assassin sent to assassinate her. Assassins and secret agents nowadays were very good at hiding, and Yun Jian never lacked the necessary vigilance toward strangers. However, Lan Su took out the sandalwood box. The sandalwood box. Yun Jian naturally remembered that the sandalwood box was placed by Ce in the ancient tomb, at the opposite end of the stone cave that no one could pass through. It was a place that didn't belong to the real world. That place was called the Yulong continent, and it was a place that was completely different from the space they were living in now. Back then, there was only one entrance to the stone cave, and Yun Jian had experienced how powerful the mechanisms in that stone cave were. Normal people wouldn't be able to enter it. There were many people waiting for the stone door to open, but until now, no one had been able to wait for a year to enter through the stone door. Therefore, she could basically conclude that the girl in front of her, who called herself Lan Su, was from the Yulong continent. Back then, Ce had hidden the sandalwood box very well. If it wasn't someone from the Yulong continent, it would be impossible for them to discover the sandalwood box. Yun Jian pursed her red lips, but she couldn't help but look at the girl in front of her seriously. "I'm stupid. I'm not stupid. Go away, don't get in the way of me getting to know pretty girls." Chu Xiangnan didn't hear the source of Chu Ning's anger at all. He even flicked Chu Ning's head and shouted. Then, Chu Xiangnan took advantage of the moment when Yun Jian was still in a daze to run over to Lan Su. He grinned and said, "Hey, pretty girl, what sorcerer god, monarch god?" Chu Xiangnan was an expert at flirting with girls, especially when it came to pretty girls who were to his liking. He would always think of ways to strike up a conversation. Lu Shiyun and the others face-bombed. They were no longer surprised by Chu Xiangnan's actions. Just as Chu Xiangnan wanted to slowly strike up a conversation with Lan Su glanced at Chu Xiangnan. She looked at Chu Xiangnan and said coldly, "Kid, get out of my way." Lan Su actually called Chu Xiangnan a kid? When Lu Shiyun and the others heard this, they all laughed maniacally. "Ha ha ha. Kid. Chu Xiangnan, you're a kid. Did you hear that? She called you a kid." Chu's face, Lan Su's face, and Lan Su's. In the face of everyone's laughter, Yun Jian was unmoved. She pursed her lips and looked at Lan Su. The cheerful atmosphere between Chu Xiangnan and the others was a stark contrast to Yun Jian and Lan Su. Chu Xiangnan and the others quickly quieted down. Yun Jian, on the other hand, looked at Lan Su and finally said slowly, "Let's talk somewhere else." Since it was related to the sandalwood box, Yun Jian couldn't speak in front of Chu Xiangnan and the others and Lan Su. "What's the matter? You don't have to be so secretive, do you?" Chu Xiangnan shouted after hearing this. As soon as Chu Xiangnan finished speaking, Chu Ning gave him a headbutt. You two go ahead. We'll stand here and wait for you. Lu Shiyun was smart, and he gestured to Yun Jian. Okay. Yun Jian nodded, and then said, if you can't wait, you guys can go first. After saying that, she called Lan Su to go with her to talk alone. Yun Jian chose a quiet coffee shop nearby. After ordering a cup of coffee, the two of them sat across from each other. Chapter 399. In the coffee shop, Lan Su's strange clothes attracted the attention of the people around her. However, most people's gazes only lingered on her for a short while before they moved on. Yun Jian asked Lan Su in a very soft voice. It was so soft that no one could hear her. When she asked, Yun Jian stretched out her hand and tapped her fingernails on the table twice. She pursed her lips and her eyes moved slightly. Her posture was extremely lazy. When Lan Su saw Yun Jian's behavior, she felt that she was very similar to the sorcerer goddess. Moreover, Lan Su found Yun Jian by following her scent. The reason why she hid behind the trash was to confirm whether Yun Jian was the sorcerer goddess of the Wu clan. At first, Lan Su wasn't sure. However, when Yun Jian discovered her movements and flew over with a butterfly knife, she was overjoyed when she narrowly dodged it. Lan Su's abilities were definitely strong. Not to mention the earth where humans lived, even in the Yulong mainland where there were many strong people, Lan Su's abilities were definitely one of the best. Since Yun Jian could discover her whereabouts, it meant that her abilities were definitely above hers. Yun Jian, who had the sorcerer goddess's scent and skills, was definitely the sorcerer goddess. Lan Su didn't say anything. Instead, she took out the sandalwood box and pushed it in front of Yun Jian. Then, she said to Yun Jian, sorcerer goddess, this sandalwood box is your magical weapon. Lan Su's words stunned Yun Jian. Yun Jian pointed at herself. Then, her red lips moved. She said in surprise, the sandalwood box is mine? Yes. This is your item. Because of the words you left behind, the sorcerer clan has been waiting for you for thousands of years. Lan Su's tone became more and more excited. In the end, she actually stood up in excitement. Because Lan Su stood up excitedly, and because she was wearing an ancient costume, some of the customers in the coffee shop who were enjoying their tea turned their attention to her. Yun Jian hurriedly gestured for her to sit down. After Lan Su sat down, some of the people who were looking at Lan Su strangely turned back. What words? Yun Jian picked up the coffee and sniffed it. She blew on the coffee in enjoyment and took a sip. Lan Su had already calmed down. She looked at Yun Jian and said firmly, I will definitely return after 1,000 years. From Lan Su, Yun Jian heard a lot of things that were completely different from what she usually knew. Lan Su said that she was the sorcerer goddess after their reincarnation. Lan Su said that she was the first guardian of the sorcerer god of Yulong Continent's Wu clan. As for the existence of the sorcerer god, there was a very accurate saying. This was also an ancient prophecy that had been passed down since ancient times. The Wu clan. As long as the sorcerer god was alive, the sorcerer clan would be at peace forever. When the sorcerer god died, the sorcerer clan would be destroyed. Reality proved that after the sorcerer god left, the Wu clan gradually declined. From being the first clan of Yulong Continent 1,000 years ago, they could not even maintain their status as a clan. However, none of the clansmen gave up waiting for the sorcerer god's return. This was because the sorcerer god had said that she would definitely return after 1,000 years. Everyone believed that the sorcerer god's return would be the time for the sorcerer clan to rise to its peak. Sorcerer god, thank you for leaving the crystal ball behind. You also left a statement that when the crystal ball breaks, it will be the time for you to return. Because of this, I was able to sense your return and find you. Lan Su explained everything in one breath. So you want to bring me to Yulong Continent? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and asked. Lan Su raised her eyebrows slightly. She nodded vigorously and said, of course. Only if you return with me will the sorcerer tribe have a chance to rise again. Chapter 400. Why? Lan Su was stunned. She shouted excitedly, but her face was filled with confusion and disappointment. There's no reason. It's because I have my own life. Yun Jian placed the coffee on the table. She pursed her lips, and her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Yulong continent. The old man who had helped her in her previous life was also there. However, Yun Jian would not go there, at least not in the near future. Her family and all the people she cared about were there, so Yun Jian did not plan to leave. Is that so? Lan Su lowered her eyes in disappointment. After a while, she raised her head again and looked at Yun Jian with a determined gaze. Sorcerer goddess, whether you're willing to go back with me or not, please allow me to stay by your side. Lan Su doesn't want to leave you again. As the first guardian of the sorcerer goddess, Lan Su had finally found Yun Jian after much difficulty. Naturally, she was unwilling to leave. It's up to you, Yun Jian said lazily. Then, she pushed the sandalwood box back to Lan Su. Keep this for now. Yun Jian knew how eye-catching the sandalwood box was. Back then, her younger brother had been caught and lost his life because of the sandalwood box. Yun Jian did not want to take any more risks. Since Lan Su was from the Yulong continent, returning the sandalwood box to Lan Su was the best way to deal with this. Also, if you want to stay by my side in the future, don't call me sorcerer goddess. Yun Jian grinned. Then, she smiled and revealed her white teeth to Lan Su. My name is Yun Jian. Yes, yes. Lan Su understood that Yun Jian allowed her to follow her. She smiled and nodded at Yun Jian. Let's go. They must have waited for a long time. After the conversation, Yun Jian stood up. She paid the bill and left the cafe with Lan Su. They were naturally Lu Shiyun and the others. Yun Jian knew that Lu Shiyun and the others would not leave. As for why Yun Jian left Lan Su behind, this was probably due to his intuition. Lan Su from the Yulong continent gave Yun Jian a sense of déjà vu. However, Yun Jian could not describe this feeling. She just felt that it was familiar, and there was no sense of alienation. In addition, the sandalwood box that Lan Su had taken out earlier was enough to prove that she was from the Yulong continent. This could not be false. Moreover, a person's eyes could speak for themselves. Lan Su's eyes told her that she wasn't lying. After Lan Su and Yun Jian got up and left the coffee shop, they heard a child's naughty voice behind them. Hey, Mom, why is that big sister wearing such strange clothes? The child's mother touched the child's head and lectured, she's probably a lunatic. Baby, you can't learn from her in the future. By then, Yun Jian and Lan Su had left the cafe and were walking towards the alley. Yun Jian, you're back. What should we do with these people? Lu Shiyun and the others came up and asked Yun Jian. Lin Mengyu had fainted while Zhou Yuhao was still tied up and trembling. Kill them and bury them. Yun Jian raised her eyebrow. No. We won't do it again. It's all Lin Mengyu's fault. She ordered us to do it. It's not my fault. The group panicked. Especially when Yun Jian really did stab Lin Mengyu in the head with a knife. She was a woman of her word, even though she did not hurt her in the end. Teach them a lesson. Lu Shiyun also noticed that Yun Jian did not really want to kill the group. He was smart enough to tell the rest of Team Monarch. In the end, it was Chu Xiangnan who came up with an idea. He went to buy a marker pen and drew a tortoise on everyone's back. He asked them to wear it when they went home, or else they would be taught a lesson. Chu Xiangnan's method was a complete embarrassment to these people. Chapter 401. She believed that this lesson would be etched in her memory for the rest of her life. Yun Jian brought Lan Su to buy a few sets of modern clothes. Lan Su's black outfit that resembled an ancient costume was too eye-catching on the streets. There were not many actors in this era and movies were not as popular as they were now. After all, it was rare to see a television set at home in 1998, let alone a color TV. Back then, the average monthly income of a citizen was only a few hundred yuan. And a TV set would cost at least a few thousand yuan to buy. Some people had to save up their salary for about half a year before they could buy a color TV set. Of course, no one was dumb enough to save up their salary without eating or drinking for a few months just to buy a color TV. After all, food, shelter, and transportation were the most basic survival principles under the premise of enjoying entertainment. Therefore, Lan Su's get-up looked like a lunatic to others. Not many people would think of Lan Su as an actress. Great sorcerer goddess. Yun Jian. Where am I staying tonight? Lan Su almost blurted out the words, great sorcerer goddess, in a moment of carelessness. Since they were on the crowded street, Lan Su was quick to correct herself, so her words were choked in the cradle before she could utter them. Lan Su was older than Yun Jian, so she would not call Yun Jian Sister Jian. Moreover, Lan Su looked like she was only 16 or 17 years old, but she had lived for at least a few thousand years. Yun Jian knew this as well because Lan Su had admitted it herself. Lan Su had also told Yun Jian before that people in Yulong mainland could easily live up to a few thousand years as long as they cultivated. More importantly, there was a sacred spring in Yulong mainland. If humans used the sacred spring to wash away their impurities, they could cultivate like the people of Yulong mainland and live for more than a few thousand years. It was unfortunate that the sacred spring was long gone. Since tens of thousands of years ago, not a single human had stepped foot into the Yulong mainland. Yun Jian and Ce, as well as Ce's subordinates, Adam and Mo Sen, broke this record. I'll find someone to arrange a place for you. Yun Jian pursed her lips and said. After she finished speaking, she took out her phone and called Zhang Jifan's new phone. Beep, beep, beep. The phone rang 3 times. Zhang Jifan answered it on time. Hello, Sister Jian. Zhang Jifan's honest, middle-aged voice came from the phone. This thing could actually make a sound? Lan Su couldn't help but take a few more glances. In the Yulong continent, such high-tech products did not exist. However, Lan Su's tolerance was not bad. She had gradually accepted the new technology of the human world. She was just not used to it yet. Arrange a deluxe suite. It must be the best and most comfortable one. Stay there for the long term, Yun Jian said into the phone. Zhang Jifan, who was on the other end of the phone, was stunned before his voice came again. Okay, Sister Jian. Yun Jian hung up. Not long after that, the phone beeped with a message notification. Yun Jian looked up and saw that it was from Zhang Jifan. The address on it was the accommodation he had found. After Yun Jian arranged Lan Su's accommodation and settled her there, she went to Qin Yu's place. Qin Yu's residence was a complete suite with top-notch interior decoration. Qin Yu had saved up quite a lot of money after following Yun Jian all these years. Yun Jian was going to look for Qin Yu this time to tell her. 3 days later, she would return to the Kosha mercenaries with her. Before this, Yun Jian had already contacted Snake. Lizard. 3 days later, she would return to the Kosha mercenaries and eliminate them. Dong. Yun Jian had just knocked on Qin Yu's door when the door was pushed open. Unlocked? Yun Jian went in directly, but just as she opened the door, Yun Jian saw a familiar figure. On the sofa in the living room, Yuni was pinning Qin Yu down on the sofa with her elbow propped up, both of them in an extremely awkward position. Yun Jian was speechless. Chapter 402. More importantly, Yuni was currently pinning Qin Yu down on the sofa in a bashful manner. It was a scene that made one's imagination run wild. Ah! What are you doing? Get off me! Qin Yu's back was facing Yun Jian, so she did not notice Yun Jian. She must have been pinned down by Yun Yi just now, so she blushed in embarrassment and pushed Yun Yi away quickly. Yun Yi sprang up as well, not expecting himself to accidentally fall towards Qin Yu. He even accidentally fell on top of her. In spite of it, the scene was different in Yun Jian's eyes. Yun Jian squinted and took a closer look, thinking that her brother, Yun Yi, and Qin Yu did look like a married couple. Yun Yi stood up awkwardly from Qin Yu and glanced at the door, noticing that it was open from the corner of his eye. Once again, he fixed his eyes on the door, and his heart, which had always been calm since he was a child, almost jumped out of his chest in fright. Xiao Jian? Why are you here? Yunyi thought about the awkwardness just now and how Yun Jian was looking at him and Qin Yu with her arms crossed. It looked like she had been standing there for quite some time. Yunyi was so embarrassed that he almost had no face left. He ran a hand through his hair, his cheeks flushing red like two clouds. Go, I'd like to ask why you're here. Yun Jian suddenly had the urge to tease Yunyi. Looking at how flustered Yunyi was, Yun Jian felt like she had never seen her brother like this before. Yun Jian suddenly recalled how Zhang Xiaofeng and her brother had come to her one morning to ask for Qin Yu's address after training them. She recalled how her brother was drugged by Qin Yubing and ended up lying on the same bed with Qin Yu out of the blue, hugging each other naked. Yun Jian's hand that was crossed over her chest suddenly stroked her chin. She narrowed her eyes at Yun Yi and Qin Yu with a subtle smile. Xiao Jian, it's not what you think. I really didn't do anything to her. Yunyi ran his fingers through his hair and stuttered as he explained to Yun Jian. Go, I didn't think too much. Yun Jian forbade herself from teasing Yunyi. She chuckled and walked in to snatch Qin Yu's sofa to sit beside the latter, who had her head lowered and buried in her knees in embarrassment. Suddenly, Yun Jian stretched her hand, unable to resist teasing Qin Yu and peeking over to look at her. It was rare for her to be so expressive as she called out to Qin Yu with a giggle. Sister-in-law. The term sister-in-law sent a shiver down Qin Yu's spine. Slaying God, the top secret agent in the international ranking, the chief boss of Kosha mercenaries, was calling her sister-in-law? Sister Jian, don't tease me. Qin Yu kept her head down. There was a smile on her lips, but her cheeks were flushed. All right, I'll stop teasing you guys. Yun Jian smiled and stood up to turn to look at Qin Yu, telling her, go back with me in 3 days. The destination was none other than the headquarters of Kosha mercenaries. Yun Jian's words made Qin Yu's rosy smile fade as she nodded at Yun Jian. Go back where? Yun Yi was baffled. To travel. It's winter break now. I'm bringing my future sister-in-law out to have some fun, but I'm not bringing you, Gu. Yun Jian smiled at Yun Yi. Her smile was mesmerizing. Chapter 403. Qin Yu and Yun Yi, on the other hand, were blushing. Their rosy and fair faces were indescribable with words. It was only after Qin Yu made sure that Yun Jian had left that she snapped out of it and pushed Yun Yi, mumbling. Why did you do that to me just now? Sister Jian even saw it. Qin Yu shoved Yun Yi angrily and turned to face him with a pout, no longer watching the Calabash brothers on the TV. I just slipped. I didn't expect to fall on you, Yun Yi said awkwardly as he rubbed his nose, feeling a little bitter at the same time. Humph, I'm ignoring you. Go. I won't be able to face Sister Jian if she sees me again, Qin Yu said as she turned to give Yun Yi a light pat on his back. In spite of it, her tone sounded like a girl's whining to Yun Yi. Yun Yi's brow was raised to its peak while he squinted his eyes, looking extremely pleased. Especially when Yun Jian called Qin Yu sister-in-law just now, he felt like he was on cloud 9. It was inexplicably exhilarating. I'm leaving then. Yun Yi stood up with a smirk, a sly grin spreading across his face. When Yun Yi reached the door, he suddenly turned back to tell Qin Yu, who was ignoring him sulkily, I'm leaving. Tonight's dinner is in the stove. Remember to eat and tidy up the house. A girl's house can't be so messy. If I'm not here to tidy up for you next time, eat on time. Don't forget to eat because you're watching Calabash Brothers all day. As he spoke, Yun Yi pretended to leave. Yun Yi went to the door. He gave his silent permission for 3 seconds before Qin Yu's voice came from behind him. Wait. You're not coming anymore? Yun Yi's back was facing Qin Yu. He suddenly smirked and turned around, the smile vanishing instantly. Yun Yi looked at Qin Yu and said with a straight face, That's right, didn't you ask me to leave? Then I'll take my leave. Qin Yu pouted and looked at Yun Yi. She bit her lip and said to Yun-yi, "Then you better not leave." He had been looking for her ever since Yun-yi tidied up her room that day. Qin-yu had been quietly accepting Yun-yi's kindness. Today, Yun-yi had prepared dinner for her and accompanied her to watch Calabash Brothers. She did not expect that he would slip and fall onto the sofa. Coincidentally, Yun Jian, who had suddenly come over, saw the scene. Yun-yi smirked at Qin-yu's words. He already knew this would happen. Yun-yi then walked over to Qin-yu. Yun Jian left Qin-yu's house and went home. It had been a few days since she last saw Ce, and she could not help missing him. In spite of it, he seemed to have returned to the organization because Adam and Emosen were nowhere to be seen. They had probably followed him back. Just as she got home, she saw Qin-yu. "Xiao Jian, you're back?" Qin-yu asked Yun Jian with a grim look. Yun Jian nodded and asked when she saw Qin-yu's odd expression, "Mom, what's wrong?" Qin-yu answered directly, "Xiao Jian, do you remember your best friend, Lu Fian, from Xinjiang town? Just now, I ran into a fellow villager from Xinjiang town when I was shopping at the market. I heard from her that something happened to your friend Lu Fian's family. When her father went to the school to help, he accidentally dropped a long pole from the 3rd floor, and it stabbed a student to death. The student's parents sent her father to jail and forced Fian to drop out of school. They even said that if Fian dared to go back to school in the future, she would pay for her father's life and stab her to death too." Chapter 404. Qin-yu's tone was laced with a deep sigh and helplessness. She had bumped into her hometown friend when she went to the market to buy groceries at night and chatted excitedly before her friend brought it up. In the end, he asked the poor girl who she was from Xinjiang town. He would not have known if he did not ask, but when he did, he was shocked. Her hometown friend told Qin-yu right away that the poor girl who had suffered for nothing was called Lu Fian. Lu Fian. Qin-yu was stunned when she heard it. Lu Fian was her daughter's best friend in Xinjiang town. Moreover, Lu Fian often came to her house to look for her daughter, Yun Jian. Qin-yu and Lu Fian had met each other many times as well. Especially when Lu Fian treated him so politely. She was a very good girl. Qin-yu panicked when she heard it. She was such a good girl, how could she have met with such a sinner? Considering Xiao Jian and Lu Fian's relationship, Qin-yu had been frowning ever since she got home. Since Yun Jian asked, she told her directly. In spite of it, Qin-yu knew that she could not help with such matters because she was not a high-ranking official. She could only shake her head and sigh. When Yun Jian first heard Qin-yu's words, her eyelids twitched. The image of Lu Fian rebutting the teacher for her when she had just been reborn surfaced in Yun Jian's mind. There was also the encounter with the cobra in the park. The last thing the silly girl did in her panic was to block the cobra's attack for her. Later on, the girl promised her that they would enroll in the same high school together. Although Yun Jian had returned to Xinjiang town to visit Lu Fian, her stay was short. In spite of it, Lu Fian's figure lingered in her mind. Lu Fian was Yun Jian's first friend after her rebirth, so it meant a lot to her. Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian, what's wrong? Did you hear what Mom said to you? Qin-yu waved her hand in front of Yun Jian's eyes. She thought that Yun Jian was stunned by the sudden news, so she quickly asked. Yun Jian snapped back to reality. She looked up at Qin-yu and asked, Nothing. Mom, what did you just say? Xiao Jian, go back to the village tomorrow and check on Fian. Here's 2,000 yuan, bring it to her too. I'm not capable, I can only help her a little. Qin-yu pulled out a cowhide envelope out of nowhere and stuffed the bulging envelope into Yun Jian's hand. This 2,000 yuan was all of Qin-yu's salary that she had saved up since she started working. Other than the meager living expenses that she had to spend, Qin-yu had put almost all of her savings into this leather envelope. This was Qin-yu's token of appreciation. Yun Jian nodded and accepted the envelope. Since Lu Fian's family was in such a big mess, Yun Jian had to go back no matter what. A friend that Yun Jian had set her mind on would never change. The next morning, Yun Jian boarded the bus back to Xinjiang town before the sun had even risen. She was carrying a simple backpack. This backpack was already a little shabby. Even the color of the backpack was the kind that couldn't be more faded after being washed. The cowhide envelope that Qin Yiru gave her was in the backpack. Chapter 405. Yun Jian had been to Lu Fian's house several times before. Lu Fian's family background was one of the best in Xinjiang town. Both of his parents were retired teachers, and every month, he received a decent amount of pension. Therefore, Lu Fian's house was beautifully decorated. At least compared to the houses in the village, it was one of the most outstanding houses. In the past, when Yun Jian came to Lu Fian's house, it was always clean and tidy. However, it was a mess outside the house now. Taking a closer look, Yun Jian saw many bright red words painted in red. They were scrawled on the walls around Lu Fian's house. A life for a life, right and proper. You killed my son, give me back my son's life. What kind of teachers are you? Go to hell. This originally white and unadorned outdoor wall was now covered by a pile of curses written in red. Even passers-by could tell that these words were written by the family's enemies. Yun Jian knew the details. She immediately understood that these words were written by the students' parents who were accidentally stabbed to death by Lu Fian's father. Yun Jian's eyes darkened. She carried her backpack and stood in front of Lu Fian's house. Reaching out, Yun Jian knocked on the door. No one answered. Yun Jian raised her hand again and knocked. Young lady, you're here to look for this family, right? An old lady's voice suddenly came from behind. Yun Jian turned around and saw an old lady in her 70s or 80s standing behind her. She was even holding a stove for warmth. Yun Jian nodded. She frowned, feeling slightly uneasy. They've gone to the police station. Young lady, go to the police station and look for them. Sigh, what a sin. After the old lady said that, she shook her head and sighed softly. She turned around and left with the stove. The old lady had only come over to remind Yun Jian out of kindness. With this reminder, Yun Jian immediately knew what was going on. Lu Fian and her mother could not sit still when Lu Fian's father was already locked up in Xinjiang town's police station. It was reasonable for Lu Fian and her mother to go to the police station. Thankfully, Xinjiang town's police station was not far from here. Yun Jian carried her backpack and walked there in no time. In the waiting room of the police station, Yun Jian saw Lu Fian and her mother. Lu Fian had lost a lot of weight. She looked pale and weak, and her hair was messy as if she hadn't combed it for days. She sat on the chair in the waiting room, staring at the floor in silence with her mother. It wasn't until Yun Jian came in front of LV Fian and showed her the shoes that LV Fian raised her head to take a look. Then, she saw Yun Jian. Xiao Jian. Lu Fian pressed her pale lips together and called out softly as tears streaked down her cheeks. Yun Jian walked over and hugged Lu Fian's frail body. She reached out and patted Lu Fian's back. This was the only way to comfort her. More tears flowed down Lu Fian's cheeks. Her mother who stood beside her was like a weeping doll, staring blankly at the floor without a sound. When Lu Fian recovered, Yun Jian helped her to a seat far away from her mother. Lu Fian then cried and told her about what she had been through these few days. Lu Fian's father was invited by the principal to help out in school that day. He was a retired teacher after all, and Lu Fian's father was getting on in years. Chapter 406. As the principal of the school that Lu Fian's father had been in for half his life was a distant relative of hers, Lu Fian's father was too embarrassed to reject and went. In the end, a tragedy happened. When Lu Fian's father was helping to move a long pole, he was accidentally bumped into by someone on the third floor. The pole slipped and he fell from the window on the third floor. A classmate happened to pass by downstairs, and the pole pierced through the classmate's head, killing him on the spot. The person who bumped into Lu Fian's father and caused the pole to fall from the third floor was a young teacher with the surname Su. When this teacher Su saw the incident, he refused to admit that he had bumped into Lu Fian's father. He even stood up and said that Lu Fian's father was careless and caused the tragedy. That distant relative, the principal of the school, was also unwilling to clarify the matter after seeing the incident. The result was that Lu Fian's father was to blame for all of this. Lu Fian also said that after the incident, Lu Fian's father was arrested and sent to the police station. The parent of the classmate who was killed had been making a fuss. That classmate's parent even held a kitchen knife and did not allow Lu Fian to go to school. He said that if Lu Fian dared to go to school, he would chop her to death for her father's debt. Therefore, Lu Fian had been staying at home for the past few days, looking haggard. When a person really needed help, those who could lend a helping hand were truly people worth befriending. Just then, a male police officer in uniform suddenly walked out of the police station. Lu Fian and her mother stood up. This case hasn't been solved yet. Our chief said that you're not allowed to visit relatives. You should leave first. The male police officer waved at Lu Fian and her mother and turned to leave. Police officer, I beg you. Help us, just let us take a look, just one look, okay? Lu Fian's mother, who had been silent all this while, suddenly sprung up like a spring. She rushed forward and grabbed the male police officer's hand as she begged humbly. Go away, go away. I said no means no. Unless you get the higher-ups to sign off, you're not allowed to enter. The male police officer waved his hand impatiently. Lu Fian was anxious as she watched, tears streaming down her face. She and her mother had been waiting here for a long time. Ever since Lu Fian's father was sent to the police station, they had not seen him once. The reason given by the police station was that the case was not solved yet. As long as the higher-ups sign off, we can visit. Just as the male police officer impatiently pushed Lu Fian's mother, a female voice was heard. The police officer was taken aback before he saw Yun Jian, who was making her way over slowly. Thinking that he was an honorable police officer, he looked up at Yun Jian with a lowered gaze and nodded. That's right, as long as the higher-ups give their approval. Yun Jian pressed her lips together and slid her backpack down, grabbing it in her palm. What are you doing? Comes, loses, of course, to, it, of. Of Lu. To. With one look, he was instantly dumbfounded. Yun Jian's name and gender were written on the top of the document. Below it was a note, Advanced Special Forces official member. There was another note, Advanced Special Forces highest officer, personally issued by Gu Junjian. This document, the male police officer was dumbfounded. He looked at Yun Jian and was speechless, his teeth chattering. You're an Advanced Special Forces soldier? Officer GE's Advanced Special Forces soldier? That's the top force in the country. How old was she? She was actually a member of the Advanced Special Forces. The male police officer's jaw almost fell off. Chapter 407. Yun Jian had actually become an Advanced Special Forces soldier? When did she become an Advanced Special Forces soldier? Lu Fian was dumbfounded. Even Lu Fian's mother, who had been in a daze all this while, lifted her eyes and looked at Yun Jian in shock. The male police officer was dumbfounded. His hand that was holding the ID trembled as if he had seen something incredible. Other things aside, Yun Jian's document was definitely not forged. More importantly, Gu Yunjian's Advanced Special Forces was the top force in the country. Moreover, all members of the Advanced Special Forces had special privileges in Country Z. With the document personally stamped by Gu Junjian, it meant that Yun Jian's status was much higher than that of the male police officer's position in the police station. At the same time, as long as the Advanced Special Forces soldiers had this document, they could be considered as having been sent by their superiors to carry out missions. In other words, no matter where the Advanced Special Forces soldiers went to in Country Z, as long as they were in Country Z, they had the right to get the local police station to cooperate with them. Yun Jian had such special privileges. This was also one of the main reasons why Yun Jian had joined the advanced special forces back then. This document was given to Yun Jian by Gu Junjian not long after she and the others had completed their first mission. The male police officer had gone from being arrogant earlier to trembling slightly now. His gaze towards Yun Jian had changed. Changing his arrogant attitude from earlier when he thought he was a police officer, the male police officer took 2 steps towards Yun Jian. He suddenly flashed a smile as if he was flattering his superior and returned Yun Jian's document to her. So now, can we allow them to visit their relatives? Yun Jian took her document back from the male police officer's hand and smiled. The male police officer quickly nodded like a rattledrum. His attitude had changed a little too quickly. He even pointed at the prison beside them and said, "Please, please, I'll bring you there now." The change in the policeman's attitude shocked Lu Fian and her mother. Ever since Lu Fian's father was arrested, Lu Fian and her mother had been coming to the police station every day to plead with them to let them see Lu Fian's father. However, the people at the police station did not allow it. They even used the reason that Father Lu was a murderer and said that they were not allowed to visit before the case was solved. This cycle had been going on for a long time. Just as Lu Fian and her mother were about to give up hope that the police would allow them to visit Father Lu, Yun Jian appeared. Moreover, Yun Jian merely took out a certificate and the male police officer immediately changed his attitude. He did not even ask the chief and directly brought them to visit Father Lu. This piece of news was undoubtedly the best news that Lu Fian and her mother had heard since the incident. "Xiao Jian, thank you. Thank you." Lu Fian looked at Yun Jian with tears in her eyes. She hugged Yun Jian again and thanked her gratefully. "Go on, I'll wait for you outside." Yun Jian patted Lu Fian's back and told her softly. "Amen." Lu Fian nodded fervently and held her mother's hand to follow the male police officer to the prison. Yun Jian did not follow them in. She stood outside and waited for a while. About an hour later, she saw Lu Fian helping her mother out with tears streaming down her face. "Have you seen him?" Yun Jian asked Lu Fian, looking at her mother who was in tears. Chapter 408. Yun Jian took in Lu Fian's reaction as well. She knew the girl's pain, so she did not say much. No one would feel good if they were to encounter such an incident. Moreover, although Lu Fian's father did not kill on purpose, he had killed someone by accident. Even if he did not deserve death, he would be sentenced to life imprisonment based on the current situation. Lu Fian's family, in particular, had no power or influence other than not living in poverty. It was said that the father of the student whom Lu Fian's father stabbed was a prominent figure in Xinjiang town and even in Longmen City. Not only was he rich, but he was also powerful. It was not hard to guess that the reason why the police did not allow him to visit his family after Lu Fian's father was imprisoned was probably because the parent who was stabbed by Lu Fian's father had taken over the police force. "Take Auntie home to rest for a bit," Yun Jian told Lu Fian when she saw that Lu Fian's mother was not in good condition and went over to help her. "Amen," Lu Fian nodded and repeated her earlier words gratefully. "Xiao Jian, thank you. I really have to thank you today. If it wasn't for you, Mom and I wouldn't have been able to see Dad." At the mention of her father, who was still suffering in prison and whose aged face had obviously lost a lot of weight, Lu Fian felt as if she was at a loss for words. Lu Fian's father was a righteous man who was always willing to help others. After he retired, he would gladly oblige any acquaintances who asked him for help. He was quite kind. Sometimes, though, kind-hearted people got into trouble easily. Lu Fian's father was exactly like that. After the incident, the principal who asked Lu Fian's father for help and teacher Su who bumped into him and caused his bamboo pole to slide down from the 3rd floor had both gone into hiding out of fear of trouble. Therefore, Lu Fian's father shouldered all the responsibility. Yun Jian patted Lu Fian's back and helped her mother up to make their way to the Lu family. Clang! Clang! Clang, clang, clang. On the way back to the LV family, there was only one more turn before they reached the LV family's residence. Quang quang quang, the sound of someone knocking on the door was suddenly heard. The voice came from the Lu family. Lu Fian's mother shuddered. Lu Fian's face also turned pale. Lu Fian's mother quickened her pace and ran towards the door. Although Yun Jian didn't know why, she suddenly remembered the words that were scrawled in red paint on the surrounding mud walls outside the Lu family's house. She had some understanding in her heart, so she followed Lu Fian and Lu Fian's mother. After turning the corner, the main gate of the Lu family came into view. At this moment, Yun Jian's eyes narrowed. She frowned slightly as she looked at the front door of the Lu residence. A few people were smashing the door with hoes used by farmers. One of them was an old man who looked to be in his 60s or 70s. He was smashing the door with a hoe. He was cursing and yelling in a mournful manner. "My grandchildren, my pitiful grandchildren, get the hell out here. Get out here. What kind of retired teacher is this? You killed my grandson, so I'll make your daughter pay with her life." From the old man's words, Yun Jian could tell that he was probably the grandfather of the student that Father Lu had accidentally stabbed to death. Chapter 409. In reality, Yun Jian's guess was right. This old man with a hoe and a group of people was the grandfather of the student who was stabbed to death by Father Lu. The reason why Mother Lu was so flustered was because of this old man's rudeness. The innocent student was called Zhang Qin. He was a 12-year-old boy and was a 5th grader. With regards to Zhang Qin's death, Father Lu was dispirited. Father Lu had always been on the right path and had never taken the wrong path. Even after being a teacher for his whole life, he was still humble. Father Lu would be condemned by his conscience for the rest of his life for accidentally killing a student in school. On the other hand, Zhang Qin's grandfather was a farmer without any culture. After Zhang Qin's death, Father Lu's grandfather turned the wrongful death of Father Lu into hatred. Even when Lu Fian was still in school, Father Lu had wanted to chop her to death with a hoe. According to Father Lu had killed his grandson. A life for a life, and Father Lu had insisted on killing Lu Fian. Father Lu had been crying and scolding in front of the Lu family's house every day. After the winter break, Lu Fian did not dare to go out. Other than going to the police station to beg the police to visit Father Lu, Lu Fian did not dare to go out. Because the moment she went out, Father Lu would bring a group of people to kill her. There was once when Lu Fian was a step slower and would have been stabbed in the stomach by Father Lu. That time, Lu Fian's down jacket was torn apart, revealing a huge hole. It wasn't that Lu Fian didn't know how to protect herself, but when she complained to the police about Zhang Qin's grandfather's behavior of transferring his hatred to her, the reason given by the police was that Lu Fian had to show evidence. There was no reason to talk nonsense. Lu Fian and Lu Fian's mother also felt that the police officers were most likely bribed by Zhang Qin's father. Now, even if they called for help, there was no one to help them. But who told them to have no power or influence? They could only hide as much as they could. "Mom, let's go." When Lu Fian heard that, she hurriedly grabbed Mother Lu and Yun Jian with her other hand and wanted to hide. All of this happened in a split second. When Lu Fian's mother and Lu Fian's conversation ended, they had already run to the corner to hide. At the entrance of the Lu residence, someone from Zhang Qin's grandfather's group had already noticed Yun Jian and the other two. "There they are!" someone shouted. Zhang Qin's grandfather immediately turned around. He furrowed his brows fiercely and rushed over with a hoe in his hand. Zhang Qin's grandfather was an authentic farmer. Because he was uneducated and didn't know the law, and because Zhang Qin's grandfather had lived in his youth, he had always relied on himself to solve problems. His own grandson had been killed, and Zhang Qin's old-fashioned way of thinking told him that he had to kill the other party's daughter to avenge his grandson. Momentarily blinded by hatred, Zhang Qin's grandfather raised his hoe and charged towards Lu Fian and her mother. His speed was abnormally fast. "You deserve to die. Damn it." "Ah." Zhang Qin's grandfather completely ignored him and rushed over with a group of people. Most of these people were uncultured villagers like Zhang Qin's grandfather. They did not know that every injustice had its perpetrator and every debt had its debtor. They also did not know that such things were handled by the law and the police. Run, the two of you run. Mother Lu saw that it was too late. She pushed Lu Fian and Yun Jian, wanting to use her body to block Zhang Qin's grandfather who was rushing over. Chapter 410. Seeing that Zhang Qin's grandfather was about to reach them with a hoe, Yun Jian's mother pushed Lu Fian and Yun Jian. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Combining everything that had happened before, including Lu Fian's explanation to her, she could already guess the current situation. Yun Jian's mother did not forget to push her away when she pushed Lu Fian away. Yun Jian's eyes lit up, not expecting her mother to defend her as well. In spite of it, Lu Fian's behavior was inherited from her parents. "Mom!" Lu Fian called out. At the same time, Yun Jian had extended her arm. Just as Lu Fian's mother was about to push her and Lu Fian away, she flipped her hand and a pair of fair and clean hands coiled around Lu Fian's mother's wrist like a snake's body, pulling Lu Fian's mother to her side. At the same time, Yun Jian turned and stood where her mother was just now. Her position was the closest to Zhang Qin's grandfather who was coming at them with a hoe. "Both of you, leave." Yun Jian pressed her lips together but her expression remained unchanged. "No, Xiao Jian, you, child, leave quickly. This has nothing to do with you. You shouldn't be dragged into this." The former was Lu Fian's panicked voice while the latter was her mother's. In their panic, both of them had completely forgotten that Yun Jian had revealed her identity as an advanced special forces soldier. Lu Fian had also forgotten about Yun Jian's unusual skills when she was still in Xinjiang town. Right now, Lu Fian and her mother's biggest worry was that they would drag the innocent Yun Jian into the mess. In spite of it, it was because of Lu Fian and her mother's kindness that Yun Jian was willing to befriend them or help them with their problems. "Shoo!" Yun Jian suddenly put her hand to her lips and glanced at Lu Fian and her mother before pressing her lips together, a sharp glint flashing in her eyes. Lu Fian and her mother were stunned by Yun Jian's action. However, while he was stunned, Zhang Qin's grandfather had already led a group of people over with hoes in their hands. Crowds had started to gather around them. Some passers-by could not help stopping to watch the situation from afar. Some were panicking while others covered their mouths, unable to believe that they were witnessing someone hacking someone with a hoe. Everyone was afraid of what would happen next. Yun Jian, who stood at the front, would be hacked through by the hoe. In spite of it, no one left due to the anticipation of watching a show. Some of them had already covered their eyes, not daring to watch the situation. As Zhang Qin's grandfather cursed, he was overwhelmed by his impulsiveness and was about to chop Yun Jian with his hoe. Lu Fian and her mother wanted to rush over to block the attack on her mother's behalf to help her. Yun Jian's to her, in the next second, she was on the move to move. If someone asked how fast the speed was, then they would tell you without hesitation that it was now. Raising her leg 180 degrees, she kicked the hoe in Zhang Qin's grandfather's hand that was at the front of the pack, causing him to fall to the ground. Then, Yun Jian used the same speed to weave between Zhang Qin's grandfather's helpers. Her speed was so fast that no one could keep their eyes on her. By the time Yun Jian passed through Zhang Qin's grandfather's helpers, they were all lying on the ground and the hoe in their hands was nowhere to be seen. This scene set off a huge wave in everyone's eyes. Chapter 411. Yun Jian did look a little young, especially with her frail frame. Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men were different. Although they looked a little older, the way they rushed over with their hoes was even more ferocious. They did not look like old men at all. However, the reality was the complete opposite. In the end, it was Yun Jian, this seemingly weak little girl, who kicked the hoes of Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men far away. Wherever Yun Jian went, Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men fell. Although there were no fatal injuries, she still managed to subdue them. At least, the scene of blood splattering on the spot did not happen. However, after Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men fell to the ground, they still felt the pain of being scraped. Lu Fian and her mother were dumbfounded. Even Lu Fian, who had seen Yun Jian's abilities, could not help but sigh. Yun Jian's abilities seemed to be even more shocking than before. Lu Fian's mother, on the other hand, was stunned. In her impression, Yun Jian had always been a gentle and weak little girl. When Yun Jian showed her ASF certificate at the police station, it was enough to shock her mother. Now, Lu Fian's mother was completely convinced. With such abilities, how did Yun Jian not look like an ASF soldier? The police are here. The police are here. Just then, someone in the crowd shouted. At that moment, Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men who were lying on the ground did not stand up again. Zhang Qin's grandfather kept cursing, but he could not stand up. Yun Jian pressed an acupoint on their cartilage. This acupoint was taught to her by the old man who had taught her hypnotism in her previous life. As long as she used her wrist strength to press on an acupoint, the person would only be able to move after at least 10 minutes. Of course, this method was only temporary. Upon hearing that the police had arrived, some of the people who had taken up positions around the area hurriedly made way for several male police officers in police uniforms who were rushing to the scene. Xinjiang town was not big, but it was not small either. It was not surprising that the police would immediately rush over when something happened. What's more, the matter had already blown up. There were more and more people gathering around, and there would be a few of them who would run to the nearby police station to complain. What happened? What happened? What's going on? He asked 3 questions in a row. A tall and thin policeman with a round face walked over with a few other policemen behind him. Coincidentally, when they arrived, they saw Yun Jian and Zhang Qin's grandfather lying on the ground. What are you doing? What are you doing? Little girls don't learn to be good and learn to cause trouble? Once the tall officer saw it, he led a few other officers to Yun Jian's side, talking as he walked. It was obvious that this tall policeman was the superior of these policemen. His position was slightly higher than theirs. Just as the tall policeman led the policeman towards Yun Jian, a male policeman beside the tall policeman saw Yun Jian's face clearly. The male policeman suddenly trembled. He tugged at the tall policeman and pointed at Yun Jian, shouting, She, what about her? The tall policeman asked in confusion. Chapter 412. This male officer was the one Yun Jian had met at the police station not too long ago. After Lu Fian and her mother had left the police station after visiting her father, the male officer could not help bragging to his colleagues in the station that he had seen an advanced special forces member. He had even exaggeratedly gestured with his finger. He had said that the advanced special forces member was a young girl who looked less than 18 years old. At that time, the tall policeman even ridiculed the male policeman with a contemptuous sentence. An underage member of the advanced special forces? Pfft, do you think it's so easy to join the advanced special forces? Even if they're new, they're only candidates for the special forces after entering the training camp. Not everyone has the chance to become an advanced special forces member. After the tall officer had said that, he had even added proudly, My cousin is a special forces member. He's been in the special forces for more than 10 years, but he can't even cross the threshold of becoming an advanced special forces member. The tall officer had only said that to show off that he had a wider range of knowledge. At the same time, he wanted to express something. An underage member of the advanced special forces? He had to be kidding. The tall officer had even bragged to the other officers later on. Until someone had suddenly run to the police station to say that something had happened somewhere. That was why they had come here in such an aggressive manner. At first, the tall officer had really thought that the male officer was bluffing. It was only until he saw Yun Jian standing in front of Zhang Qin's grandfather and others who were beaten to the ground and exuded her natural regal aura that the tall officer sucked in a deep breath, thinking that what the male officer said just now was not impossible. As for what the male officer had said earlier, it had indeed shocked everyone present. Even though they did not know what the advanced special forces represented, everyone present had heard what the male officer had said earlier. However, everyone had clearly heard what the policeman had just said. The girl in front of them who had beaten up Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others was a special forces soldier. No wonder she was so powerful. With that thought, everyone was relieved and looked at Yun Jian as if they were looking at a powerhouse. Regardless of Yun Jian's identity, Yun Jian's ability had been displayed in front of them. This was an undeniable fact. Cough, cough, cough. Everyone, get up. Those who are causing trouble, follow me back to the police station. The tall policeman was not stupid. He saw that Yun Jian was indeed not simple, so he did not deliberately put on airs. Instead, he walked over and patted Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others who were lying on the ground with his baton. Sheriff, we can't get up. I don't know what that wretched girl did to us just now, but now we can't even move. Zhang Qin's grandfather's helper saw that the police had come, so he said very respectfully. Why can't you get up? Even if you can't get up, you still have to leave. The tall policeman wasn't polite to Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others. As he spoke, he turned around and instructed his men, each of you carry one of them and go back to the station to make a statement. Since the tall policeman who was one level higher than them had already spoken, the group of male policemen had no choice but to walk over and carry her. Yun Jian, Lu Fian, and Lu Fian's mother also went to the police station. After Yun Jian and the other two finished their statements, Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others could move. However, in the police station, Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others did not do anything else. Moreover, they had seen Yun Jian's skills. Just as Yun Jian and the other two walked out of the recording room, they saw a man in his 40s, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, rushing in from outside. The man ran to Zhang Qin's grandfather and frowned. Dad, what's going on? Chapter 413. Zhang Jiming looked very depressed. His not-so-handsome face had sunk in. It was obvious that Zhang Qin's death had dealt a huge blow to Zhang Jiming's family. Zhang Qin's grandfather pointed at Yun Jian and said a bunch of things to Zhang Jiming. The three of them heard it clearly. What Zhang Qin's grandfather said was naturally a description of what had happened. However, Zhang Qin's grandfather exaggerated the details of how Yun Jian and the rest were beaten up. Zhang Jiming frowned. After listening to Zhang Qin's grandfather, his frown was so deep that it could squash a fly. Just as Zhang Jiming was about to walk over to Yun Jian, her mother suddenly let go of Lu Fian and Yun Jian's hands. She ran over to Zhang Jiming and knelt down with a thud. The tears on Zhang Jiming's mother's cheeks had yet to dry. She did not have the time to wipe the tears off her face. Instead, she moved her knees 2 steps closer to Zhang Jiming. I beg of you. I beg of you. This is my husband's fault. Please be magnanimous and stop bullying my daughter. She's innocent. She didn't do anything. If you want to kill her, come at me. I beg of you. Lu Fian's mother begged. Lu Fian's mother wasn't afraid of death, but she couldn't let her daughter live a life of fear where she could be hacked to death anytime. People without power and status were always the weakest in society. Because they couldn't get to know people who were better off than them. Yun Jian and Lu Fian didn't expect Lu Fian's mother to kneel down in front of Zhang Jiming. Mom. Mom, don't do this. Mom. Lu Fian shouted and rushed over. She squatted down and hugged Mother Lu, trying to pull her up. Lu Fian couldn't let her mother kneel down and beg for mercy. Your daughter is innocent, but isn't my son innocent too? Zhang Jiming looked at Lu Fian's mother coldly and kicked her away. He then looked at her and said, my son is only in primary school. He's still so young. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mother Lu kept apologizing as tears filled her eyes. She was apologizing for her husband's mistake. Can I get my son back if you're sorry? Huh? Why can your daughter live well in this world, but my son is still so young, and he has to go to the Yellow Springs alone? Ah. Zhang Jiming's emotions were also stirred up. He even carried a thick aura of hostility, and his voice trembled as he spoke. That's why I'm going to kill you. I'll kill your entire family. Ha ha ha, I'll kill your entire family for my pitiful son. Zhang Jiming's emotions had reached a peak. Just when the group of people was in a hubbub and attracted the police once again, a clear sound was heard as the police tried to pacify the crowd but to no avail. Slap. A crisp sound rang out, and then it fell. Yun Jian had unknowingly stood in front of Zhang Jiming. Without saying a word, she ruthlessly slapped him. This slap thoroughly woke Zhang Jiming up. It also shocked the group of police, and made Lu Fian and her mother fall silent. For a moment, the surroundings were silent. Everyone could only hear the sound of breathing. At this moment, Yun Jian looked up. Her pair of sharp eyes were like a sharp sword, staring at Zhang Jiming. The young girl's voice was heard. Chapter 4:14. Yun Jian's words were like a baton to Zhang Jiming. He looked at Yun Jian blankly, opening his mouth but no words came out. As long as it involved his son, Zhang Jiming would become anxious. It's already happened. Do you think your son can come back to life just by using your little bit of power to stir up trouble? Yun Jian's words pierced right through Zhang Jiming's heart. However, she didn't stop there. Instead, she continued to speak in a tone that made people shudder. You're dreaming. How dare you say that? You. Zhang Qin's grandfather was enraged. He turned to look for his precious hoe to kill Yun Jian but was stopped by Zhang Jiming. Zhang Jiming looked at Yun Jian and seemed to have calmed down a little. He frowned and looked at Yun Jian. Continue. You're the one who stopped them from visiting. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Zhang Jiming. She pointed at Lu Fian and her mother. Not only Lu Fian and her mother, but even the group of police officers present were stunned on the spot. How did you know? Zhang Jiming was even more shocked. He exclaimed, not afraid that his actions would be exposed. The policemen were shocked. Other than Zhang Jiming and the people in the police station, no one else knew about this. How did this young lady know? Zhang Jiming quickly came back to his senses. He sneered and looked at Yun Jian, then at Lu Fian and her mother. So what if you know? Do you think you're the chief of the police station? Do you think you can stop me from doing this? Zhang Jiming's voice was filled with anger as he spoke arrogantly. Zhang Jiming did not know that Lu Fian and her mother had already gone in to visit her father. Moreover, he did not know Yun Jian's identity as an advanced special forces soldier. That was why he was so arrogant. B****. How can our chief compare to her? The tall policeman had already believed that Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier. When he heard Zhang Jiming's words, he quickly stood up and scolded him. In fact, the tall policeman was afraid that Yun Jian would spread the news of him being bribed to Gu Junjian. Gu Junjian was a famous person in Z country. If the higher-ups investigated thoroughly, not to mention the money that Zhang Jiming had bribed them with, even all the policemen present would face the danger of losing their jobs. They couldn't afford to take this gamble. However, when Zhang Jiming heard the tall policeman's words, he felt that Yun Jian was inferior to the police chief. Oh, did you hear that? You can't even compare to the police chief. Zhang Jiming thought that the tall policeman was helping him to criticize Yun Jian. That was not all. Standing in the police station, in front of everyone, Zhang Jiming directly pointed his finger at Yun Jian. He raised his head high and continued, my son was killed by you, so you have to pay with your lives. Do you know that power is greater than the sky? Even if I kill all of you today, you won't be able to find any excuses. These few words seemed to have dragged everyone in the police station down with them. It did not matter if it was anyone else, but Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier. And one of Gu Yunjian's. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.